1, go.
Welcome to Plat Chat Overwatch. Jaws, Bren, just eating, drinking, the greedy gnomes from Britain. And this is really a smorgasbord of guests that we've got on Plat Chat rotating throughout the off-season, actually. Jaws, are you quite finished with your dinner, mate?
Look, I just got off a fucking phone call with my parents, and I had to scoff some food real quick. So, you know, the classic instant
You're not allowed
ramen.
to eat in front of your parents, is that it? Is that a rule that you had at home?
No, I was on there for an hour, and I was like, you know, I'll just make some apples. And I was like, God damn, I got Plat Chat soon real quick. So, you know, I'll whip something up real fast.
All right, fair enough.
I also had a
enough.
Reese's cup too. They're pretty nice.
They're not bad, actually. They're not bad. Did you do anything for Halloween? Did anyone go out? Did anyone get any trick-or-treaters? Did you get your house egged? Any news, any stories?
I went as Zach Bagans from Ghost Adventures.
Who?
Don't know that.
Who are you talking about?
Huh?
It's just that, dude, if anybody out there watches Ghost Adventures, you know what I mean. Zach Bagans is probably the best host
Has anyone heard of the
to
show?
ever exist.
What's he talking
I'm
about?
about to Google the show right now.
Dude, he is so funny. He dresses like he's still in the 90s. It's fucking phenomenal.
Oh, it's. I thought we were going to see like an anime show.
Like a
This is,
cartoon.
yeah, I thought
This
it was
is a
going to be a
No,
cartoon.
Ghost Adventures. No, it's like a. It's been on for like 25 seasons.
Are we talking
from
some
like 2000.
awful reality TV where people are like looking for
it's
ghosts?
literally Ghost
Yeah,
Hunters?
yeah. It's sick.
literally
Turn
It's
it off,
sick.
Kurt. Turn it
It's
off.
really good.
Turn
He wears
it off.
I
baggy
don't-
jeans.
Turn it off.
Make the
Atrocious.
thumbnail Zach Bagans instead of me. No, don't do that. That would be funny though.
I enjoyed Bren's outfit last night. I don't know whether you posted it anywhere.
I posted on
He
Twitter.
did. He posted
posted
on
it.
Twitter.
Yeah, I
Right,
posted on
picture?
Twitter.
Oh,
I
yeah,
was
I
given
do
an
remember seeing
hour, a deadline to create a Halloween costume because I was told costumes
Strongly advised.
strongly advised,
Strongly encouraged.
because we were playing some casual board games, some nice Halloween board games, and I cooked up something special. So here it is, and then if you go to the quote tweet, this is the goal.
That's the inspiration.
That was the
Okay.
goal.
good.
I was like,
That's
maybe
good.
I can do this, and then I didn't do it.
Oh man,
Oh, that's
That's a
really
good one.
good. Also,
your abs
why-
are really coming through on that picture.
you didn't even emulate the
pose.
same pose.
I couldn't take a picture and do the pose at the same time.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, because there's no one else in the house that could have taken a picture for you.
I was too embarrassed.
Right.
Too embarrassed to ask for help.
Too embarrassed, so I posted a picture to Twitter instead.
Yep. Yep.
All right, I've got some news to start things off, all right? And this is out to you, all right? You
people.
posting comments and posting things on Reddit. We are not going to be able to cover all the news today. It's just a physical impossibility unless you want us to do 4-hour episodes and then never do an episode in a dry week. It's an off-season. It takes like 10 months, the off-season.
it's a
doesn't it?
long
It's a
off-season.
6-month off-season. Okay, I understand.
Well, actually, I like you doing 4-hour episodes, and I wish you'd do everything in one go.
But
Thank
what
you,
we-
Timmy.
What we are going to aim for today, little Timothy, is a 2-hour episode. And if we don't get through everything, we don't get through everything. But I can tell you, we'll do it next week, all right? So maybe we won't get to your favorite team, but we will next week. And a lot of us stream, and so you could just ask us there if you want to anyway. But we're going to start off with one of the teams that we missed. We're going to start off with one of the teams that we missed last week, except that there's some other really important news coming up first of all, which is that the Cowboy character, the one with the spurs and the hat and the peacemaker, has been renamed to Cole Cassidy. That's a pretty badass name.
Yep. Good name, I think. And it's quite interesting reading the outer internet, I guess. Like within Overwatch,
The outer net.
everybody knows in the Overwatch scene, like, okay, well, the devs have been fighting for this internally. That, you know, this is a win for them. It's a massive undertaking. They've had to replace voice lines. It would have cost them a ton of money to do, on top of the just not even fun development, you know. They're literally just painstakingly going through every aspect of the game and renaming it. But my God, there are still there's a large amount of people out there who are like, oh, if Blizzard thinks that this is a good PR move and this is going to make us forget everything, then fuck them. And it's like, well, the lack of understanding that Blizzard is made up of multiple different parts. And this was a decision that was made by the devs. It was fought for by the devs to do. Didn't have to do it, but they did. And it means a lot in terms of the actual gesture of it.
Well, I think that's a good place to start as well. They really didn't have to do this. I mean, in terms of a PR perspective, you did not have to rename that character from a PR perspective. It's not like Bobby Kotick was shit in his pants and he's like, we've got to rename that fucking Cowboy right now. It's a PR disaster. But most people didn't even realize the connection until it was brought up.
Which
Which makes it honestly not a good PR move, but a move that the developers wanted to do, I think, because they don't want to glorify somebody that was involved or at least implicated and alleged to be involved in these horrific acts that were going on within Activision Blizzard. So it really feels like people just view it as a monolithic entity.
Well, one is making the decisions.
Yeah.
One AI at the top.
Yeah. But I still think is it going to solve the problem? No. But was it still a good move anyway? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Does it need to be anything more than that? Don't really think so. I mean, it was just a good move.
All right. Outside of the PR implications, though, did they choose a good name? Are you going to enjoy saying, let me pick Cassidy? His name's Cassidy,
Cole.
right? In the game, it's not Cole. It doesn't come up as Cole. It comes up as Cassidy, I think.
Yeah, it comes up as Cassidy, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you going to enjoy saying Cassidy?
What was the
instead
other
of-
proposed name that I remember? There was like another leak saying that his name was going to be like Jake.
It was Dave, I think.
Dave.
No,
It was
Dave.
Oh, Dave, yeah. Dave would have been funnier, I think.
No,
Dave.
Dave would have been a bad name. Cole Cassidy at least fits the art, like the character.
It's
I
very
think.
American.
At least it fits the character.
Cole
like the
Cassidy.
Jedi.
Cole
Yeah, it
Cassidy.
feels cowboy. You know.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I'm cool with it. I'm cool.
How
with it.
long
I'm
do you
fine
think
with
it's going to take people to actually get it in their heads to call the character? Because, I mean, it was called McCree for so long that people are still going to call it that anyway. I mean, some people are just idiots, so they'll do it, like, deliberately.
People
but a
would
lot of people, it's
absolutely
just
do it
burnt into your
deliberately.
brain, you know? Like, it actually is just hard
Yeah,
to
like
get out of it.
like the Kree call out. Like Kree is one, you know. Like that's going to take a long
exactly.
time to be replaced, I think. But people
Yeah.
will start calling him, I don't know, maybe Cass or I don't know.
I mean,
Cole.
Cole would
Call it shortened
be
down, but
easier because you
Cole,
want
yeah.
something that's easy to say.
Except
Sure.
Cole is
Kree
already a
so
term
easy
that
to say.
exists in comms.
That's
because
true.
it's
That's true.
coalescence.
I forgot we have English and Cole already exists, so we can't
Yeah.
really fucking yeah.
By the way, don't know whether any of you saw this, but popped up on my Twitter timeline, so I thought I should bring it up. They didn't do any SEO searching, I think, of Cole Cassidy beforehand because he is a male gay wrestling actor that makes incredible content.
Really?
Well, I mean,
Yep.
maybe they did it deliberately then.
Maybe
wanna
they
have
did it
that-
deliberately.
They want to have that cross activation.
Bumping those search terms up.
But
I did see.
before this popped off on a bunch of like news articles, when the first announcement from Blizzard, if you Googled Cole Cassidy, it only came up with the wrestler, and it's such low budget, fantastic male gaze like man wrestling. I mean,
Whoa, there
it's
it is.
it's just wonderful.
Cold
Gotcha.
Cassidy.
Oh my god.
Absolute gotcha hyper moment.
Yo, zoom on some of these, Kurt.
I'll show
get
you
the,
the boss
get
of
the video
this gym.
demonetized real fast.
I'll show you some boss
I'd be
of this
careful. I'd be
gym.
careful, Kurt.
Yeah,
I'd be very careful about that one.
Yeah,
I think that's very funny.
don't think they had that persona in mind when they were renaming.
they
Honestly,
definitely
I-
don't have
I
that
think
planned.
So good if it just becomes super fucking gotchy and like everyone's it's just all the Cole Cassidy shit just super hetero like homoerotic like the whole
Yeah.
thing like the whole character. I think that'd be
God.
really funny.
It would be amazing. I mean, there's already so much fan fiction about the character anyway.
Yeah.
It just plays into it even further, I think. Wonderful. All right. On to the off-season news then, because the first team that we're going to get to here, like I mentioned earlier, is one that we missed previously. It's the Dallas Fuel. The Dallas Fuel have made a number of moves, but they've stuck with the same kind of core. While I was drinking wine and ranting about Jecse as being slightly overrated, we haven't really discussed the overall kind of stuff here. So they have replaced Jecse with another main support that's come out of O2 Blast, a team that did incredibly well over in Korean Contenders, and a lot of their players have been picked up. And then they've also gone a little further to patching some of their hit scan holes and like made a more all-rounded DPS core, I would say, with the addition of Edison and Gorillo as well. What do you guys think about this version of the Dallas Fuel? Are these improvements?
Yes. Would you like me to elaborate?
I would love you to elaborate.
Yeah, well, Bren can go first. How about Bren
Well,
go first?
I mean, we were particularly harsh on Jecse. I mean, you were particularly harsh
Okay,
on Jecse.
but okay, if you're going to start with that, it makes me want to try and defend myself.
No.
I
Okay,
didn't say he was
but
appalling. I just said he wasn't
I agree.
elite.
He wasn't a superstar player. Jecse was never a superstar player. He played the role. He had great pre-existing synergy with the entire team.
Absolutely.
And I think he played his role and he played it well and he was exactly what was necessary for the team. But if you want a little bit of extra, why not take a punt with some talent coming out of contenders, and his replacement isn't exactly just an unknown ladder player.
No, absolutely. No,
they're replacing him with a bit of a heavy hitter when it comes to like rookies.
Yeah.
I think it makes a ton of sense if you're going to make those kind of replacements. Pine being let go, actually, out of all of the changes, out of all the times to keep Pine, I feel like going into Overwatch 2 would have been the best time to keep Pine. When you see a return to DPS Zug. I feel like genuinely, if you were ever to argue that Pine would come back, it's when the game gets a bit of a soft reset in terms of the flow of it and how it's going to be played in general, because otherwise he's catching up to essentially years of meta development.
It made no sense them adding Pine last year.
It didn't.
It makes some
sense. It makes some sense to keep him into Overwatch 2, but they didn't in the end, so whatever. But this is...
He can be added to the list of bag getters in the Overwatch League, just unreal breadwinners. Like, he came in, he scored a fucking bag with the Dallas Fuel. Did he play a game? Did he fuck? And he sat at home, like, watching the games, being part of the team. Yeah, sure, but now he just leaves. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I'm sure Pine wishes he had an opportunity to play. And I'm sure a lot of fans do as well. I think, though, it can't be forgotten that every single person was going, what the fuck, when they signed him.
Apart from the fans. Fans were gassed when Pine was in. I kept getting so
dude,
many
I was
questions.
Hyped too.
Do
I
you
was
think
super
Pine's
excited
play?
to see actual hit scan in the Dallas Fuel in the Overwatch League. I was like, fuck, can't wait to see him back, baby. And then I think every time we were on your stream, Connor, like doing the companion streams with the Dallas Fuel, it's like, yeah, so when's Pine coming in? Like, that was just a running meme for the entire fucking year, or at least when he was signed, of course.
Yeah, definitely not. I don't know. It was a weird pickup. I also don't even agree that going into Overwatch 2 you keep Pine, simply because like it's kind of I mean maybe you could have, but also there's so much younger talent available that have been actively playing. Does it mean Pine's bad? No, I don't think so. I think Pine probably could theoretically still play in Overwatch 2 and be good with the more DPS centric focus moving forward. But realistically, considering he hasn't been playing actively now for essentially what it's been like 2 years, almost more.
Yeah,
like, and you have very young, you have like young talent that have been playing and popping off. Like, it definitely feels like a much safer investment.
Okay, well, let's talk young talent then. Let's talk young talent. Let's talk Gorillo, because that is a player that I'm unfamiliar with. I've got to be honest, heading into this offseason, my plans for pretty much every offseason are wait to do research until players actually get picked up, because otherwise I'm researching everybody that is playing in Tier 2. So
I'm just lazy.
Tell me what you know about Gorillo.
At least you're honest.
Tell me what you know about Gorillo. What's the word on the street? Because he is a hitscan player, right? And he's coming out of Korean contenders, but not a team that was destroying Korean contenders, as I understand.
He's from it was from a team that's historically been pretty good. It's Team Diamond, which used to be GZ Busan, and they got sponsored and they got rebranded. Their team themselves in Korean contenders did not do that well. They did great in trials, but I've watched Gorillo, and this feels like very much like one of those, like what was that one team that everyone poached players from that was like really bad from Korean contenders? Like Meta Athena or OZ Gaming.
OZ,
yeah, OZ Gaming. It feels kind of like exactly. It feels kind of like that. He has, if you've seen his play, he has good mechanics and he fits that DPS hole. I feel like if anything, he's like a developmental thing in case Edison doesn't work out. That's what I see when I see the signing. Is Gorillo is there in case Edison does not work out for them. Is the biggest thing when I've seen this signing, because he has pretty much the exact same hero pool. He's just younger and a rookie, and he has like a lot of potential. While Edison is like a proven star that's had some downswings in his career, but you know, if he returns to form, is like going to be another like major star.
Right. So yeah, I think the addition of, if we theorize what the addition of Edison would have done for them this year, I feel like it would have been pretty huge. Now, there's always the argument that Dallas Fuel actually thrived because they had to be creative without a hitscan player. I do partially adhere to that argument too, but I don't think it's any debate that adding Edison this year would have made them much more well-rounded. And so it makes a lot of sense to try and grab him if he's a free agent heading into next year.
Especially
he's still very talented.
If the logic we're all going with into next year is that the game is moving to more of a DPS focus, why would you limit yourself with the DPS roles?
Sure.
Like, I don't think that makes sense at all. If it gives you more options, you pick up another hitscan player. Can't comment on this guy's individual performance, but historically, whenever rookie hitscan players are picked up, hitscan's a role where the mechanical ability is there, and just catching them up to the general playstyle meta tendencies that you need at the top level is the work afterwards that's put in. But the mechanics are always usually there when it comes to these kinds of players when they get brought up into the Overwatch League. And I trust the structure of Dallas to be able to make the most of their rookie players.
Yeah.
I think Edison's like the best. I think Edison is potentially the best pickup that they could have made. One of the best pickups they could have made in the offseason, because that's like by far the biggest hole. Was always hitscan / tracer player. And Edison, his stocks took a downturn, but everyone forgot that he used to fucking pound. Even when he came in and
when he was
played,
on GC Busan Wave, he fucking dominated on Tracer.
And even then before that, I mean, like, I think the few times he got to play, he wasn't always amazing for Atlanta, but he definitely showed promise, even on heroes he wasn't traditionally good at. So I think
you've also got to remember that on Atlanta Reign, he was competing for his spot against Kai and then a Pelican. Kai is absolutely one of the best hit scans that we have in the league, and then Pelican was Rookie of the Year and one of the best just DPS we had in the entire league too. So
it's tough.
That's tough.
I think Edison was the perfect signing though for them, and if that doesn't work out, Griot is like essentially the same hero pool.
Yeah,
and very young, strong mechanics can be developed. So
to tee off Bren's point too, with a rookie coming into the structure of the Dallas Fuel, you've got to remember he's going to be under Rush as well, who's been like developing talent for a long ass time.
So long. Yeah,
he can. Yeah, like if there's anybody that can develop young talent that they see sparks in, it's definitely Rush that can bring players like that up to an hour level standard for sure.
And that brings us on then to the main support that is coming in to replace Jecse, which is Chio, Chio. I assume it's Chio though. And there was a Dallas Morning News article where they interviewed Tasmo and some other people about Chio coming into the team. And there's a quote here saying, both his mechanics and his willingness to learn and hopefully mold with the team will bolster our roster. The players already really like him, and we're interested in how that whole thing develops. So it seems like they just really wanted upcoming, very talented main support player who had good mechanics and ability to gel with the team that would add that extra like punch to their roster that they need.
Yeah. I was just looking at his previous history, and he spent almost 2 years on Runaway as well, from 2019. Well, the end of 2019, I guess, to like mid of 2021. Spent 4 months on O2 Blast, and then got first in season 2 this year. Like,
that's fantastic pedigree.
Yeah, like coming from Runaway is already pedigree enough, but then to just quickly flip over to O2 Blast. Although saying that, I'm not entirely sure how many matches he played. On over.gg, it didn't say he played any matches for O2 Blast, but I'd have to, sometimes it's not like 100% accurate. So I'd have to like actually scrub back in the VODs and check. But to then go into a team that had a big roster, to be fair, and then win in 4 months a contenders title is pretty insane. So definitely on the up and up.
Yeah, I tend to trust Rush in terms of people that he picks up as well. The talent acquisition. He's spent a huge amount of time in contenders as a head coach in contenders himself, finding talent, picking up talent, developing talent. So yeah, like you said, he's got all the chops to be able to do that. Does this Dallas Fuel look better than the previous one if we're thinking about them headed into 5v5?
I would say so.
Yeah. I think so.
They have Humble and Fearless like to cover the tank role, the solo tank role at this point. They've got a ridiculous coverage in terms of hero pool. You're banking on rookies, but then I'd 100% trust Rush to bring that up, bring them up, to the level of the team. I mean, how many DPS players? They got 4, right? With Doar and Sparkle still on the roster too. Like, I think the Fuel look even better than they will last year, just on paper, right?
Yep.
I completely agree. Disputing arguments, but I think it'd be pretty hard to do that.
A lot of other teams are going for double flex support, actually, if you look at how they're trying to construct rosters. So I suppose that's the only thing that currently the Dallas Fuel would be lacking out on. Now, I must say, I'm caveating that with I haven't watched games of Chio play. He might be able to cover flex support roles, and I'm just unaware of that. And, I'll update that as I watch his games and do research heading in.
I mean, the thing is that a lot of teams, they've been looking at some scouting for because as far as I'm aware, Chio has not played very much. When I've seen of him, he has not been O2 in general on his time. He hasn't played like any flex support. He's played like a lot of Brigitte, a lot of Mercy, a lot of Lucio, obviously. And so I don't think He's a traditional main support player.
Sure.
And I think the biggest thing is that he definitely currently might not be covering, but if they believe his mechanics are really good, they think he could maybe learn flex support. Yeah. That's what some philosophy are for some teams. Like, okay, we're going to get a really talented, mechanically gifted main support that we hope can learn flex. But who knows? They might still sign a flex support too. So.
Yes. Yeah, that is also possible. One of the other huge moves, though, that happened in this offseason, as I hear Kurt scrambling around the house. So, but one of the other big moves that happened this offseason that happened recently was the GM of Boston, Huck, tweeted out, "Time to break competitive Overwatch subreddit," or something like that. And it was like him in the fucking Emperor Palpatine costume. But anyway, they've re-signed Striker. Striker's returning back to Boston, the initial franchise that gave him his start in the Overwatch League, back when nobody knew how good he was at all. Mr. Avast, what's cracking here then? Are Boston making money moves, or are they just sending Striker to a mediocre team? Do you think this is a sign of Huck buying the dip, or is this the sign of just Huck's going to grab one good piece and hope that's enough to elevate the whole team?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you take it in the wider context of what Boston's other signings are, you're thinking that maybe this is a pretty decent build. I heard also the grapevine about the same thing I heard about Titans, that Boston are supposedly willing to put more cash on the table, slap down some craft money this year.
Okay.
So, there, that could be part of it. I also think Striker was probably... I think Huck is like a great white shark sometimes, where he can smell blood in the water, and he knows that Striker, probably his stock is not currently high after exiting the Overwatch League. I think there's a lot of really, really good players. Now, you could argue that
What was the drama?
What do you mean?
Wasn't a drama with Striker?
In 2018?
Well, no.
Like a long time ago, right?
Recently. Wasn't some shock players, no? Didn't they go on stream and start talking about Striker?
I'm not sure exactly. I'm not gonna say it. But all I can say is that his stock is not high currently. His stock is not currently high. And
wait, this is also. I'm outside of the fucking loop now. I feel like one of the viewers. I've missed out on this. I thought some stream drama that I haven't seen.
That somebody went on stream and talked about a lot of the ingoings of the shock.
And then what? The VOD got deleted or something?
Or is it just pasted all over? Tayo did like a talk. He talked about his time on the shock. Tayo talked about his time on the shock publicly, and he talked about how he had like a rough game, and then because they were trusting him to like learn, I can't remember which heroes Krusty was, and then he had a rough game, and then they perma-benched him forever. But like, and that like vaguely correlated to like, I think the other DPS's opinion of him or something like that. But like, either way, there is moves around that, but I don't know how much is public, so I can't really say.
Yeah, I don't know what's public either, but there's some mysterious elements at work.
Does that make this a risky pickup? Is this the kind of thing that could blow up in Boston's face?
My opinion, yes, because I think this is an extremely risky pickup. As someone that has personally been teammates, Striker as well. And so I think this is I think this is a risky pickup currently, because also you have to remember Striker retired mid-season and now is back again.
Yes.
So like
Avast whipping up the 2x spicy ramen.
It's like so, but also the point being there is that I think this is if Striker returns to form and the rest he fits in this roster that's building, because also you have to remember that Boston has signed Marv1, aka Marvel, and they've also signed Crimzo. To complement, alongside they still kept Faith, and they have Valentine and Punk. So I do think, like, when you look at that roster overall, you like that's a pretty decent roster on paper. Honestly, I think that's like not a bad roster at all. It's just, does Striker return to form? Does this team gel? And do they get everything out of it that they need? And on top of that, just an interesting fact too. This would mean Striker is currently the only Tracer player to have ever played for Boston, because Boston has still never had a dedicated Tracer player since he left. He is literally the only Tracer in this team's history.
That's very funny, actually. I love that idea. Now, to me, hey, I didn't realize that there was, drama, something that could blow up. All right, I'm on the outside loop of all of this stuff. So when I look at the Striker pickup, even if I'm taking this information from you that it could be high risk, it's definitely high reward as well. The guy's an incredible talent. So I can see, even if there was risk involved, even if there was interpersonal drama or something behind the scenes or whatever, that there's if there's a chance it's going to work, it could work really well because Boston's perfect stage and like all of their success in 2018 was built primarily around Striker and the incredible stuff that he was able to accomplish. They had some other good pieces, but Striker was the incredible piece. When I look at the rest of the roster, though, I'm worried he's not going to be as well supported. I think the addition of Marvel is huge for this team. Faith and Crimzo backline is good to great, but not amazing. I don't really know how to articulate that, but it's like, it's probably going to be worst case middle of the pack. If you're looking at the other teams that are playing this year, like a 10th best support duo up to a little bit higher than that is how I would view Faith and Crimzo as a backline. They're great players. The problem is the competition is also incredibly good. And so that's where I see them, is just above middle of the pack kind of area with the potential to be a bit higher. So to me, if you're getting Striker on the team and you have aspirations of getting, a team around him that is capable of living up to Striker's potential, you probably need another DPS at least to make this work. You want like a cracked DPS line to be the main driving point of your team. You've got Marvel then, you've got Striker, Valentine's like a player you can sometimes rely on, but I don't really see this team being able to live up to Striker's potential with only Valentine as his DPS partner, because I didn't see that greatness from Valentine that his potential in contenders indicated was possible. Valentine had spots of greatness this season, but it was mostly quite mediocre. I'd like them to
be
add
fair, he
another
did have to play a
DPS.
lot of Tracer, though. I think that's part of the reason why Valentine's stock are pretty low, is that he had to spend so much time on Tracer, and Tracer was not his hero.
He also played Echo, though. He also played Echo, which was his hero.
I will agree. His Echo was not impressive. But I do think there is more room for Valentine to grow this year if he doesn't ever have to be on the Tracer role.
It must be quite stressful being on a team where there's so much reliance on like your individual, I don't know, your players. Compare a team like Dallas, for example, where we were looking at the entire roster. You have so many players who can cover multiple scenarios, metas that might come up. We don't know. There's going to be new heroes introduced with Overwatch 2 as well, which is going to add even more complexity to it. But with Boston, it feels like, at least for now, I'm looking at the Marvel pick and I'm seeing like, are they just going to rely on Marvel? Like, Marvel's got great versatility as a tank player. They're going to only rely on Marvel the entire time, and then they're going to rely on Striker and Valentine to pick up stuff. It seems like one wrong meta, and this team, I could see a world where the beginning of the season kicks off, the meta doesn't go their way, the team gets off to a really rough start, and it's just Tilt City. They're going down the road of Tilt.
Could happen.
Are you guys really that low on Faith in Crimzo?
I actually like.
I'm not low on Crimzo.
I think that backline's really good, but I just think that there's a lot of emphasis and a lot of pressure being placed on the individual players because there's not much coverage in the rest of the roles, and it has potential to backfire, especially when I think one of the biggest traits you need to be prioritizing going into this offseason is versatility in your roster.
You are also judging a team that is potentially not finished yet with their offseason moves, though.
And that's,
So I think rather than saying this roster might struggle, it's more like this roster might be incomplete at the moment. If we're looking at this from our outside perspective, to me, it looks like there's still another move to be made before this roster's completed. To me, I'd say it's another DPS player because I actually think Faith and Crimzo are good enough to be able to cover the support line all season long and give you good to great performances all year. The only thing I'm concerned about is that, if Striker's one of those players that asks a lot of his teammates and he only has one DPS player to rely on, maybe that becomes a bit of an issue if Valentine still has a bit of a wonky season.
I definitely see them picking up another DPS for sure, just going on the, I guess what Avast was saying, and plus Striker's previous history of just leaving, just retiring mid-season, you know what I mean? Like, even
to be fair, that's only happened once, right? It's only happened with once now.
Yeah, while that is true, is that not a kind of a little bit of a red flag to you if you were building this roster?
It's a gigantic, huge bend unfurled
so like
in the sky.
the idea that this roster isn't finished, absolutely. Do they pick up one, maybe two DPS? Like, who knows? I think that's where they go for next. If we see a pickup, it's going to be some other contenders cracked DPS, I would imagine.
The other thing about this like Striker red flag situation, Huck knows what he's getting himself into. The guy's worked with Striker before.
He's going for round two. That's the crazy thing about this. Huck,
crazy.
He's ready. He's like, I didn't hear no bell. Like, he's ready to go.
But also, we're assuming.
But Huck knows what he's getting himself into, so he knows what the risk is, and he knows what the reward is. So there's no. It's not like Striker's gone to a team and they only see the good. He knows everything about working with Striker.
That's the greatest part about this move to me, is that it's just like he's like, it's time to come home. Striker's like, well, I guess so, and like it just feels like two people that can't break up because they just can't. They just keep ending up back up with each other, you know? Like they just can't escape each other's orbit.
Early Boston, there was rife with rumors and drama that Huck was causing all of these conflicts within.
Huck was causing is quite strong, but there were conflicts.
There were conflicts surrounding Huck and a lot of the coaching, and maybe
and the players. And there was like the rumor was there was a split between the Korean half and the English speaking half.
Yeah, and we're working off of those. All I'm saying is we're working off those 2018 assumptions, and I haven't fucking spoke to Huck in 4 years. Yeah. I don't know what he's probably changed. People change as individuals. Absolutely. They learn from their mistakes. Yeah. I hope he's learned at least a little bit in the time that he's been on a roster.
I would assume so.
I'm assuming so because he's still in that position now. So it might be just different circumstances. Who knows? And maybe Striker, I don't know, behind the scenes as well, where his stonks are particularly not as high as they might be. Maybe Striker realizes, I'm being thrown a bone here, and this is like I don't know. A rebirth as we're heading into Overwatch 2. Boston number one, winning
it could be
the
something
Overwatch
amazing.
League. You never know.
Also, you have to remember, Huck is technically not really the GM. It's Mineral that's the GM of the Boston Uprising.
He's the president of gaming.
The president of gaming, so he's presiding over all gaming. So it's very different. He's currently ruling the gaming court.
That's true. Yes, we've messed up his title. Sorry, we've spoken badly about him that whole segment. Let's move on, though, to talk about more stuff that Avast can only hint at. The Florida Mayhem now. Florida have changed up their coaching staff. And there was a bunch of weird responses to this, actually, because I like this move. Kuki ends up coming out of the Florida Mayhem to be replaced by Gunba and McGravy. Gunba, formerly of the LA Valiant, did a great job with the LA Valiant, especially in terms of picking up newer talent, scouting talent, and developing talent. Then went on to Valorant and is now back trying, presumably, to get away from the Immortals gaming group, if I had to fucking guess.
Everyone wants out.
And then McGravy also being added here. And it seems like some of the controversy surrounding McGravy is that people forget he's a former pro who's articulate and good at expressing his like thoughts. He's thoughtful and good at communicating his thoughts. People forget all of that and they just remember him on stream saying, "I'm having so much fun not playing Overwatch." And that feels like that is the like quote that got stuck in people's heads. And they're like, "Fucking McGravy got signed instead of ex-contenders coach that has proven so much more." And I don't buy that shit. I don't think that coaching
I missed
pickups.
Drama.
You did?
Yeah, I didn't really catch it. I just saw McGravy fucking battering off the masses on social media. But I missed all context for what was going on.
I believe that was the context. People were mauling that. Well, okay, let's start from here. Mm-hmm. Any kind of coaching stuff or GM positions or stuff like that tends to be you get in early or you're a former player or you know people and you get into that position, right? And so there's this thing that it's just an old boys club. It's just people rotating the same people around and around and around. A lot of the reason for that, though, is not necessarily because people just want to hire their friends, but a lot of the time it's because you only know who's good once you've worked with them. And if you know that someone's good because you've worked with them, you want to hire them again because it's almost like better the devil you know. You don't want to take a risk on, say if they want to pick up some tier 2 contenders coach that has proven a reasonable job. It's not some all-star contenders coach. It's a good contenders coach. It's very difficult and opaque trying to see how much they actually contributed to the team's success. And then on top of that as well, if you're trying to trial coaches at the same time you trial a roster, you're running lobbies with 60 different players and different coaches when the coaches are trying to select the players. That's madness.
It's also just the fact that one of the variables that gets taken into account when you pick up a player, staff, anything is clout. It's how popular they are. Are they a persona in the scene? And it's if you're taking a punt on an assistant coaching position and McGravy's searching for that kind of role, The guy he's a persona. He's a person in the scene. Avast, I'm pretty sure that was half the reason you got picked up, man. You're 2K Andy on Twitch. Like the clout is an important factor in some of these decisions that get made, and McGravy has some of it. He's a persona in the scene, and it gives him a leg up over some other people, which I'm assuming is why people were mad. But he's also he can be quite he comes out with abrasive opinions sometimes, and it can be quite bullish when it comes to his opinions on Overwatch, because I remember a lot of the coherent string of thoughts that would come out when we were watching the playoffs this year, and he's talking about how he fucking hates this team's comp, and like he was like, please pay me, then I will tell you not to play Zarya or some shit. I can't remember. Yeah. But that's probably another reason why people don't like it. But he's got
that alpha personality though that is useful in coaching.
Yeah.
As long as you have people that are willing to give their opinions and they don't get annoyed if someone else has a different opinion. They can just talk it out, you know? A lot of being a good coach is personality, is being able to have personalities that work with people, and that's an important thing to select for.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think Florida looks like they've made some decent moves here with Gunba McGravy.
Real quick, because I need to go to the restroom real quick, but I like it. I don't know. I felt like Kuki had a pretty bad year, so his stocks were definitely lower off the back of like the tail end of Mayhem's just dire season. And Gunba, an eye for talent, really good at developing talent. McGravy, unknown, but he's a player and seems, again, can articulate and talk through various stuff. Looks like Florida are trying to like set up for a... I think picking up staff that are very good at developing talent and coming up with and cooking up with new shit, new concepts, and trying to figure out broken stuff is going to be very important as well in Overwatch 2, because there are going to be so many new additions, new maps, new game modes, new heroes. So many things are going to be added all at once that it is going to be the mad rush, the rush to the West Coast to try and pan for gold as they try and figure out which comp, which strategies end up being the most broken quickest. And Gunba is a fucking nerd. That guy can find some broken shit. He's good with numbers. He's good at finding new talent. He's good at developing it as well. I'm about to piss myself.
Yeah, just a point on that to carry on what Bren said. It is actually a really important difference between last year and this year. I feel like as we got towards the end of last year, after 4 years of playing, it was 4 years, right, of playing Overwatch 1? Yeah, we're in Season 4.
Yeah. We're in Season... if you include Overwatch League as the only time, it would be 4 years.
Well, then, sure, 4 to 6 years of playing Overwatch. If you include 2016
and even 2015.
At this point, it felt more about, especially with such a balanced meta, about, like, perfecting various things, getting your aggression down and getting the teamwork down and looking to try and play more perfect Overwatch. Heading into Overwatch 2, it's not about perfection. It's about finding the broken shit and spamming it until it gets fixed or countered. That's going to be the game plan for success next year. The best teams are going to be the ones that realize what's busted and go for that really hard early as the game slowly gets balanced and changed. So I think there's a very different focus in terms of strategy heading into next year.
Yeah, I think with McGravy coming in, especially under Gunba, it can only be a good thing, right? Because Gumba's he's proven himself. Obviously, I'm not sure how we did in Valorant. No idea really. I'll go to you guys.
Gunba, yeah, he did solid with the Immortals.
He did really well. I mean, they did. Yeah. The thing is, though, he did the same thing that he did really well in Overwatch, in my opinion, which is selecting and scouting talent really well. He finds unknown people or like upcoming talent, and he can identify which ones have potential. The problem with him in Valorant, or not the problem with him, but the problem with the team is that they couldn't hold on to good talent because presumably they weren't willing to pay the money, the organization. And also the teams that they formed out of good talent didn't often work well. But a lot of the talent that they found ended up having success afterwards. So like the identification of talent was good.
Okay. Yeah, my point overall was just, he's clearly a proven coach in multiple titles at this point and has had a long history in Overwatch. McGravy could probably learn a lot from like a coaching position of him. So not only is McGravy going to benefit the team and bring in like a pro player aspect to the whole thing to assistant coaching, but also learn a lot from Gunba as well. And I think Mayhem have done a good job almost picking up like, I guess you can call McGravy like a rookie coach, but this is the first time him coaching in an Overwatch League sense, at least. And then they're also picking up a ton of talent. This is a mad, like, starting from the bottom and then see where we can get to with this unproven talent that can potentially sweep the floor with people. I'm excited for McGravy to get in, honestly. I know he's talked about it for a long time, ever since he like left the Overwatch League. So him actually getting a chance and quite reputable org as well is good.
Well, let's talk about the actual players that they've signed then, because there is a focus on upcoming talent by the look of it for the Florida Mayhem. It's not a full Korean roster, and it's not a full Western roster either. It's a very mixed bag of talent. It feels like Florida are really just trying to pick the what's the right term? It's like the best bang for your buck almost is what Florida seem to be going for with players that are being selected. What, sorry?
Just Valiant 2.0 under
Valiant 2.0. I mean, I suppose, but when you say that sounds like this year, which is not a good.
This year's Valiant, We're talking about other bargain bin Valiant. We're talking about the
2018. No, sorry, 2019. No, wait, fuck. What? 2020, right? 2020 was bargain bin Valiant
with Kai. Yeah, 2020 was
so many years of the bloody Overwatch League. So some of the new talent that they've got, then they are keeping Checkmate, but moving him into a DPS position. Let's start there because
it's not really moving, right? Because he was never signed as main tank.
Yeah, he was
always a flex
player.
DPS.
Yeah.
Whoa. He played more tank than he did DPS to me.
But the thing is, the problem with Checkmate is that you were never going to play him over Yaki for the most part. Like, how are you ever going to justify playing Checkmate over arguably
never made
sense. Like one of the top 30 DPS flex DPS players in the whole league? You know?
Sure. Checkmate, though, had moments where he played DPS that looked relatively promising, but I don't really know much more to say other than I'm glad when they kept him on the roster, they weren't planning to play him on tank. That's the only thing that comes into my head.
Yeah.
Outside of that, then, their DPS line, they've got Hydron. They announced Hydron coming in, which is a really big pickup. I think that guy's mega talented. And then also rumored to have Chris be signed. So that's a lot of
Chris
upcoming.
Being Mirror, right?
Yes, I
Chris
assume so. I'm looking at
they misinterpreted his name is Mirror. His first name is Chris. For some reason, it was rumored that Chris was joining by Halo because he chose his first name over just his alias. I don't know why.
Well, that confused the shit out of me. I'm not gonna lie.
It's Mirror.
Right, okay.
I wondered who the fuck Chris was.
I was like, what?
Okay, all right.
Mirror.
So that's absolutely bizarre, but there we go. Halo's editorial practices. But also, the guy's doing a pretty good job in the offseason. So
give him the fucking clout, man. Just give him the clout.
Okay, so what do we think about that as a DPS line? Because that is a pretty large focus on lesser known or like non-star talent, but it seems to the person that I'm most excited about is Hydron there, and he is like an up and comer. He would be a rookie in the Overwatch League, but I feel like he's proven quite a lot in contenders. So yeah, what's the thoughts on how good this is going to be?
I'm always a fan of building around up and coming talent. If that's their game plan as well, I don't know what it is for Florida. It might not be, but if they're just kind of banking on Gunba being able to select good talent as well, have an eye for it, and try and build a roster that can be molded particularly well in a leader. That's one strategy. Other teams are going for like veteran talent or like supplementing a lot of veteran talent with one or two rookie picks. There is more risks attached if you are just trying to build up from newer players. But again, I don't know the whole picture from Mayhem yet. This is barely anything. You can't even play. I don't know. It's you can't play anything.
I mean, if you take in context
the
rest of the rumored roster, supposedly, obviously, if we count confirmed signed players, which are Hydron, Checkmate, Surmajed, the rest of the rumored roster is someone, Adam, and Mirror, aka Chris.
Mirror, aka Chris.
Yeah, aka Chris.
Yeah. Does Adam have a different alias, or is it?
No, that is the Adam that was supposed to be on Valiant and didn't happen for 2021.
Yeah.
So
I do remember that actually. Yeah,
he was supposed to be on Valiant, and then they got fucked because of the contract stuff with Immortals, where they just dropped everyone. And then someone is from TCC. Yeah, pretty solid maintained.
Wasn't someone last off season rumored to be joining like instead of OG or something? Wasn't there some? Fuck, there was something last season about someone, and I can't remember exactly what it was. But yeah.
But either way, the roster, I think Hydron is the most exciting part at face value. But I think legitimately. Well, because after looking at the market myself, I think Checkmate's just like a meme. I think Checkmate's PR is doomed because of the meme, because of the main tank stuff. But when you really think about how many talented flex DPS are out there in the market, like really good ones, there's not a lot. There's really not a lot in terms of like, because all the ones that people wanted got snatched up fast. Yeah. Like really, really fast. And I think people are underestimating the potential impact of Checkmate just because he was turned into a meme. So like, there is a very real, like, there was no reason they would have re-signed him when they could have gone for like some other lesser known Contenders talent, I think, unless he actually popped the fuck off in trials, you know?
But I mean, at the same time though, the thing that, there's two very different ideas in the offseason, I feel, heading into next year. One is we need to sign players that are proven to be good, because otherwise they're all going to get snapped up. And then the other one, which it feels like Mayhem are going down, and maybe some of the other teams as well, seems to be, who the fuck knows who's going to be good? We can't even play Overwatch 2 right now. Let's sign people that are up and comers, grinders, show promise,
and pray that we can adapt and bring them up to speed with Overwatch 2.
Or maybe like make mid-season signings and stuff to try and boost your roster once we actually have our hands on the game. It's the Mayhem approach to me feels lower risk with reasonable reward.
For what you're investing in?
For what you're investing, yeah. Because I've got to imagine the salary prices for some of these guys have got to be way lower than we're talking about for, like, if Florida had kept the same team. Yeah. If you're looking to hold on to Yaki in a year like this, I mean, that guy is a premium player, even though the team didn't do well this year. Mm-hmm. And outside of that, there aren't really any big names that I feel like other people would have been bidding for and trying to beat Florida Mayhem to the punch, other than Hydron, possibly. So I actually quite like the approach of Mayhem, but there's a serious chance that they just end up being a bad team next year because they don't have a bunch of talent that we know is good. I think it comes down to whether Mayhem are fine with that, fine with just investing a little, seeing if Overwatch 2 pops off. If it does, maybe you invest more money in the offseason to get like some incredible Contenders player that's proven. I mean, this is all assuming that Contenders even gets Overwatch 2 at the same time. Who the fuck knows whether that's going to be the case?
That might cause more issues.
Yeah, I mean, who the hell knows about that? But if that was the case, and you could spend a lot of money to get the best tank player from Contenders, that best tank player from Contenders might be better than everyone in the Overwatch League, just because of the way that the game has changed so much. So I can see the pros and cons. What do you guys think? If you were a GM, Jaws, is this the route that you would take, or would you be trying to persuade the fat cat investors that Overwatch 2 is going to pop off and now is when you need to spend the money?
It's kind of difficult. Honestly, if I was I'm quite a risk averse person most of the time, so like I would bank on half of an older, more proven roster and then bring in rookies that I think would collab, and like Bren said, kind of like grinders, making sure they can actually get used to the new game. Although it's still it's going to be the same kind of shit, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, the game changed, the game mode, the brand new game mode, the new heroes, yes, but the fundamentals of Overwatch are still going to be there, at least the underlying ones, of course, minus a tank. Everything's going to play slightly differently. So getting a half and half squad of like, okay, these three players are proven, these players not so much. They prove themselves as contenders. They're rookies from what we've seen. You know, even a couple of the Hydron and Sir Majad are both underage right now. Like, what more could you really ask for? We discussed this last
episode. Are they going to be of age?
They have to be fucking 18
for 2022? Because I assumed they were, but I could be wrong with that.
Yes, January and February are both their birthdays. So yeah, so like that's what I do at least, because then you can at least bank on three players being experienced enough, having a couple of years in the Overwatch League or proven elsewhere, and then rookie players to kind of build up under people like Gunba, who we've already kind of discussed, has got a very good eye for this kind of talent.
What do you think of that? Give me.
I think it's
give me the inside perspective.
I think at the end of the day, I think pretty much we're looking at just another And also I think what people are understanding either in some ways is from everything I've heard from the streets, salaries are honestly kind of dumb stupid heading into this Overwatch 2 this next season, like across the board.
Yeah, the
salaries are kind of dumb stupid, and that includes like even teams that you think are budget. The salaries are a lot higher than you would think for budget rosters, except for like some obvious candidates. But like there's like overall. It's kind of silly when we think about budget and non-budget for this year heading into it. Like when we think about the gulf, it's like the gulf between like billionaire and trillionaire, you know, it's like yeah, they're budget, but it's not that budget, you know, like it's kind of crazy when you really think about the amount of numbers flying around. So, but I do overall think the purpose of this roster still is you are building a new Valiant. You are building not 2021 Valiant, but what was supposed to be 2020, 2019 Valiant. Of like very high value, lower cost players that you can hopefully lock down and then develop them more. And like also there's still the added risk averseness of going to Overwatch 2. So I think the roster, and also when you really look at the players across the board, like when you have players that they do have hype behind them, it's like, yeah, a lot of people don't know who Surmajet is, but did really well in contenders.
Yeah.
People know Hydron. Hydron's a really known talent. Someone was with Team CC, a very solid Chinese contenders team. Like if that signing does happen, right? And the same thing for Adam, who was like one of the most hyped. If that signing does occur, based off of the reports, then he's a very hyped OCE player, and we've seen OCE talent do very well now with Punk. So like there is like some rumor, there is some possibility that it could be a very good signing. So I think overall and Checkmate was a legitimately very solid mechanically gifted player coming out of Korean contenders before he was turned into a main tank meme. Like there is legitimate talent on the roster.
And I'll have to believe you there because he came out of OZ and so.
Yeah, but the thing is, so did a lot of the like very gifted players came out of OZ.
Faith and Skewed
came out of OZ. Faith came out of OC. Like there's good players that came out of it. So I do think it's just a gamble, right? We're literally just looking at a gamble, but every roster is a gamble. So do you want to spend $1 kajillion or do you want to spend maybe less than a kajillion?
Yeah. Do you know what I just thought of as well, actually? It's funny that they're going to pick up these young players too from contenders, these like unproven talents. Who the fuck knows when the rest of the public and the actual contenders is going to get Overwatch 2? Yeah, so if they're snapping up early people now,
who knows when Overwatch League is going to get it? As far as I'm aware, I don't.
True. Yeah. But like, you have these brand new players coming in, right? And you're probably not paying them like bank like a lot of other veteran talents. But if other teams are looking around, going, we kind of want to change the player out, or like we want to pick someone else up. Mayhem is sitting here like, bruh, like no one else has played Overwatch 2. These youngsters, which we're not paying like top dollar for, we're going to charge you top dollar because they're the only other ones that have played Overwatch 2 right now. You know what I mean? That does obviously rely on contenders not getting OW2. Fuck knows what's happening with that shit. But yeah, that's another thing that I thought just now is quite funny. They're the only other ones that have played Overwatch 2. How do you fucking practice? How do you know this person? You know what I mean? Like, how the fuck a mid-season, for example, or like, say, for example, they run it like they did last year, right? Where they have the tournaments or whatever, and in the middle, between two tournaments, another team wants to pick up another player. Are they going to be able to run tryouts on Overwatch 2 with these Overwatch 1 players potentially? Yeah, maybe,
You're running down the same train of thought that we did when we were shit-faced recording the part 1 episode.
Really funny. Jaws, you can't go too far down that rabbit hole because in the end you drink a bottle of wine and shout, why the fuck are we even recording?
Yeah, why are we doing this?
Okay, don't ask too many questions,
and then people get really mad at you. Don't do it. Don't do it.
All right, let's talk about San Francisco though, because the Andy Miller investments, they've gone for some large contenders signings. It looks like a really cool team to me. They've taken the O2 Blast core and they've added some of their remaining pieces to it. So I believe it's only Super and Violet that are remaining on the roster. Let me just double check that from my little thing.
You're correct.
So Super and Violet remain on the roster. So you've got a fantastic, world-class, best-in-role flex support player, and also a potential best-in-class tank as well. Someone with a lot of versatility, Super, who can play more DPS-y stuff if that is required of him as well. A very versatile player. I think that gets underrated a little bit because he's a streamer, He's like genuinely, I think he does get underrated a little bit because people like to rip on him on his stream.
Streamer funny man.
But he's not just a streamer funny man. He's actually a really good and well-rounded tank player too. On top of that, they've added Proper, who fucking hell, Proper is insanely good. And then they've got Finn at support and Kylo at DPS is what? Kilo? Again, no idea.
Yeah, just Kilo.
Kilo?
Like, I mean, like Kylo
kilogram?
Is like Kylo Ren.
Kylo Ren, yeah. I think it's Kilo.
Yeah.
Kilogram.
Yeah, it's Kilo.
At DPS as well. And also, another thing that we haven't added in the lower third here as well, but I'm excited about, 9K joins back to the coach.
Is it a rumor or is it confirmed?
I think that's been confirmed, hasn't it?
It has been confirmed, I believe.
I am really excited for that.
I think 9K being back with Krusty just is going to be a huge deal for the team. I think that's a huge addition.
It's absolutely massive. One of the biggest things I think that, I don't know what pieces, like what part of the coaching structure that was lost when Jungbuck and 9K ended up moving away from the team, but something was lost there, and it seemed like the Shock often had, I think, an incorrect read on the metagame in terms of what compositions they should be playing and what they were going all in on last year. 9K, I think I mean, he was just part of a lot of their success. Some of the most successful moments of this roster. Him coming in, bringing the new players as well. You've got a really, really good coaching staff. You've got new players that are already proven, and I think are just going to be, again, just taking to the Overwatch League like a fish in water. And it's... I'm excited, I think. You've got a lot to be excited for if you're a Shock fan. I'm a Shock fan. I think these are all amazing moves. Very pleased to see 9K back. And it looks like they've got a pretty good handle on the strategy that they want to go into Overwatch 2 with, which is some veteran talent, keeping Violent, keeping Super around, having really good structure, and then you've got already successful rookie players that you're going to be bringing in, and they are just going to be supplementing and now becoming your new core.
On top of this as well, just a moment on 9K's career. Starts as an assistant coach for San Francisco. They win the championship. There's a lot of hype around this trio of Krusty, Jungbuck, and 9K. 9K then presumably is looking for a head coach job elsewhere because he's got all of that skill and like experience already, but ends up finding a GM position at the Paris Eternal in order to bring Rush on as head coach to get Sparkle, right? That's all of the internal politics shit that goes on behind the scenes there.
But 9K that absolutely providing the coaching alongside in the manager position.
Yeah, he gets the coaching responsibilities as well, but had a GM position. His salary presumably increases a lot. Goes over to head coach for the Fusion and just had a disaster of a season through nothing that he could have really controlled. The Fusion just got shafted by the visa issues all year long, and they still had a reasonably good season. I think it's difficult to even though the stonks of 9K might have gone down a little bit, it's difficult to really hold him responsible for anything that happened to mess with the Fusion season. I feel like they still made as good decisions as they could in the moment and had quite a bit of success. But he's now returning back to San Francisco as an assistant coach. He's not coming back as a head coach. He's not coming back as a GM. Presumably, this indicates some kind of like pay cut or like it's almost a demotion for him. But I find it intriguing, the little like circuit that he's made around the league, because despite taking different positions with different theoretical pay ceilings, he's actually in pretty much the same position. People still respect him a lot, and he could feasibly have been a head coach this year, but he's actually an assistant coach with the Shock. I think that's interesting.
I think it's pretty. I think overall we're still dealing with this theory of like, where does the Krusty coach be? Like what sort of power is held within, when the Dragon Balls are reassembled, you get the wish. Like, I don't know. Like I'm not quite sure exactly where from all accounts, 9K, very good coach. I mean, part of the reason why Paris Eternal succeeded. I think if COVID hadn't destroyed Fusion this past year, we would have seen a very interesting run from the Fusion.
Yeah.
Under
absolutely,
him.
I
agree.
So like, I think you have to be excited to have, because the reality is, like, a head coach can't do everything. You need to have support generally for a coach to be able to get a lot done in a game that's as like intensive as Overwatch.
Okay, the players then, because let's start, I think, with the Let's start with the DPS line, actually. Proper and Kilo. I am so excited to watch Proper. This guy has been a beast for quite a while. Has he only just turned 18? I assume that's the reason. He's still underage. Jesus. What's the break-off point? When does he become 18?
December. So in a month.
Okay.
Yeah. So he'll be of age.
Yeah. For anyone who's unaware, though, I mean, I think if he had been of age last year, he would have been snapped up instantly as one of the top picks.
100%.
I mean,
100%.
Proper and Pelican together was like watching miracles be performed from the DPS line. I thought that was insanely good when they played in Contenders. So this feels like a massive pickup for the Shock now.
Yeah, O2 Blast, do it again.
People are saying he's going to be
he's
potentially going to be better than Pelican, you know? That's what people are talking. And Pelican was like next level, right? So that's what people are saying about Proper. Like people think he is the second coming. Now, obviously that can happen. Like we've heard that you never know how players can perform until they actually get to the Overwatch League stage. Yeah. So, never go too crazy. But if you've seen this guy's performance on O2, the man fucking pounds. Yeah. So does Kilo. This DPS line in general is a fucking incredible DPS line. Like
I think that argument gets less valid though. I think the argument of people not being able to perform on stage in the Overwatch League gets less valid if you did play in Korean Contenders, especially if you played on LAN Korean Contenders when it didn't get like a little bit decimated by COVID and everything else. Like, yeah, I don't put too much weight into that. When you look at players that have been playing on stage for a long fucking time.
It's an exception when people do well in Korean Contenders and then flump on OWL. The general rule does seem to be you're a great player if you're great in Korean Contenders and then you go to OWL. But there certainly have been notable exceptions where players just look so much worse than you're anticipating. But I would say that those are exceptions. I would still expect this DPS line to be nutty when it gets to the OWL level. Do you need an extra player here, or are you happy with two? If you're the Shock, you've got Krusty, you've got 9K, you've got great players. Presumably, this team still has championship aspirations because it looks like they're spending big on upcoming players. Do you need an extra DPS player to fill this out?
I would say yes, just because, man, this is getting fucking meta-y right now, but like just going into Overwatch 2... and with the question mark amount of heroes that are coming into the game, there's always been, I feel like in Overwatch originally, like there's always been need for more DPS players just because the amount of DPS characters that you do have to kind of master. I have a good feeling if they release, I've said this on my stream a few times, but if they release like 5 new heroes, they're definitely going to release 2 to 3 DPS, and then they're going to leave supports and tanks out to dry because DPS, most popular role. I just feel as a support player, it feels fucking bad, man. Give me something more than fucking Moira, you know what I'm saying? But I just think you can't obviously bank on that, but just the pool available is just so large. Having 2 DPS players might be a hindrance. Not having that flexible third would be a good idea for most teams, especially as you have like the silly specialists. We saw a lot of that this year. Sim, May, Torb, like that kind of shit. I do think it would be beneficial for them. Plus, like I mentioned just previously, I'm quite risk averse, so like picking up someone that's more veteran as in the DPS role wouldn't be such a bad idea either, because then you're Proper and Kilo can still have kind of, I wouldn't say like a mentor or anything, but still rely on your other DPS having so many years of experience in the league, or at least a couple of years, being able to kind of back you up there as well, and you're not relying on 2 fresh faces to the Overwatch League. But that's just how I would go about things personally.
I would be surprised if they picked up a veteran talent, not because I think it would be a bad move. I agree with you. I think they need depth in the roster, but just looking at this roster already, they must have been pulling out a lot of money to get 9K on this roster again, and the O2 Blast guys, the core O2 Blast. They must already be spending a ton, and Super and Violet.
Super and Violet.
They must be spending so much. I mean, Super is literally one of the faces of the league.
If Super isn't earning the most in the league, then
I would be so shocked.
I would be surprised. I'm not going to say I'd be gobsmacked because sometimes I don't think the shock. There's like this weird thing where people assume the shock just pay the most because they won the most. I don't think that is true from what I've heard.
Players want to join the shock because they win.
Yes,
I mean Finn and Proper and Kilo supposedly all had other offers. It's just they chose the shock over higher paychecks. Was the rumors?
Yeah, and that's what people tend to do because they know that the shock can provide you with wins, can provide you with a good system. People want to work with the coaches, they want to work with the org. But at the same time, I mean, Super is like an insane... even if you were just going to sign him as a streamer, he'd be worth a lot. And so when you get that plus his play, there's certainly going to be some serious money being spent here on this roster. What about the support line? Violet, Finn... You've got a nasty double flex support duo there if you need to rely on it. And like I said earlier, there seems to be a theme to me that I'm seeing where teams have noticed this year how good double flex support was. Seeing Bap Zen being played a lot, and then Bap Brig, but also having to have that Brig player flex to other support roles that are more DPS-y, especially with the way that it seems the support characters are going. This, to me, makes a lot of sense to have a player that maybe sits on the bench sometimes, but is going to be an amazing 1-2 punch if you have to run him at the same time as Violet.
Depends on the role of main support, like the traditional main support role in Overwatch 2, right? Like, it really just depends on how valuable Yo and Mercy in particular, and Brigitte as well, because a lot of main supports have picked over Brigitte, but like also a lot of flex supports have learned Brigitte. So it really just, it's kind of like Brigitte at this point is kind of a 50-50. Where, like, you can have a main support playing it, you can have a flex support, it kind of depends. You can have dedicated Brigitte specialists, like Skewed, so it really just depends, like, where that stands. I think it's a gamble. Finn is fucking Omega cracked. Like, so when you get someone that's really, really good, you're, like, just gambling on the fact that they're going to have enough mechanic talent that, like, the game is going to change to where you want someone like a flex support player to play new heroes heading to Overwatch 2, and also double flex support will become more meta. And also you want to bank on that their mechanical talent will allow them to learn other things. Now, there's still a chance Shock can still get like a traditional main support player as well.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, this is not a finished roster. It doesn't look like it anyway.
By any means.
They've only got 5 players.
Is it a Megamind play? Is it a Megamind play to assume that the Overwatch balance moves at a snail's pace, and Lucio was so bad in the playtest that you just don't need a main support player?
Well, not just Lucio, but Mercy as well. The players came out of that playtest thinking that Lucio and Mercy were essentially throw picks, as far as I can tell, because you just never generated your ult on Lucio, and Mercy just couldn't keep up. So maybe they're thinking it's going to be very similar at the beginning of the year.
Are they thinking that the Overwatch 2, whatever build the Overwatch League gets with Overwatch 2, might be incomplete, and still the balance changes might not be in? I mean, that seems kind of crazy. I mean, if the game's supposed to release soon and you're getting like the half-baked Overwatch 1.5 playtest that we saw.
Yeah, you're still 6 months out though from getting your beta. But I wouldn't be surprised if that had influenced some decision making. If they asked the players, "Hey, what felt strong, what felt bad?" and they're like, "I don't think main support's even gonna be a thing, mate, because Lucio Mercy a dog." Like, if the players said that, I could see that influence in some decision making.
Yeah, it could, because I mean, there's also just, when you think of fundamental changes here, there's less tanks to ferry around.
Yep.
If you're playing brawl comps, there's less tanks
DPS
and like people to fly to with your Mercy. The DPS are faster. Like, you know, like, it's main support might not be that relevant. So I think if you're gonna gamble, you might as well gamble and get 2 support. No.
Yep. What else is there to say about the San Francisco Shock? I think I had another question, but it has flown out of my head right now. So I think that's it. The Shock look pretty cool. I'm excited to see. We have another one here, though. Hello. There is... Hello. I thought we were moving on from the Shock. No, hello to our next topic, which is the LA Gladiators. Which is, the LA Gladiators have kept SPACE, and they are adding... I keep wanting to say Reiner, because it's the character from Valorant. Reiner. Adding Reiner.
Reiner from Valorant?
Yeah, I mean, every time when I look at that, I see Reiner. And
I don't know how you see Reyna there. There's like a Y in
it. It says Ryan. It literally says Ryan.
Yeah, I know that says Ryan, but also under that same logic, you'd say Reinforce instead of Reinforce. Different words have different pronunciations. I understand. Okay, I made a mistake. I understand I was making the mistake. Space and Reiner. Reiner's the tank that was playing with American Tornado, right? This incredible team that was just decimating their way through contenders that a lot of teams have been going for. This to me seems like a pretty decent pickup. The Gladiators in general have been making money moves, but then also lost Deepe at a very weird time. This team seems like one that is trying to buy good talent and flesh themselves out a lot before the beginning of the season.
I think it's quite interesting how Deepe cited a lack of budgetary support back office and then proceeded to buy many of the best players on the market.
Yeah.
I think that's quite an interesting. I think that's a rather interesting observation that he cited a lack of support, and they continue to, and yet they have purchased one of the greatest rosters on the entire league.
Re-signed Space.
Not that I'm saying this is not me postulating that Deepe is like some sort of like full of shit or something. I just think it's an interesting observation to be like, he cites specifically lack of budgetary support, and then they buy the best roster. So I just find like a very interesting.
Maybe he and they just have completely different assumptions about what a reasonable budget size is. Like, for example, if you think Overwatch 2 is going to be the biggest game on the market next year, you might reasonably think you should be spending buku money. You know, but in order to be primed for like 1 million viewers or whatever. You know what I mean? If you really think Overwatch 2 is going to be the next fucking big thing. But most people are not that high. They're like cautiously optimistic. So they're not going to want to spend the millions. Nevertheless, this is a great roster.
I think I'm making a hot claim right now. I think Reiner could be potentially like the most valuable player in the first for Overwatch 2, like for the first season.
Okay,
like
why
I do
is
think
that?
I think he is like the truth. I think he had such an incredible amount of interest, and the reason is because he's like super. He can play everything, literally everything. He used to go by a different name. He used to go by Frill, was his old name. He had played for like a lot of different contenders rosters, existed for a long time, and this dude is hyper fucking flexible. He plays off tank. He plays main tank. The guy pounds. I think this guy. I think he's like probably the best pickup you could look to get as a tank. Like it's exactly what you want is like a tank player that can play everything, and he can. So I think he's like the truth. I think that's like the by far out of all their pickups. I think that's the most impact. Like people talk about like, oh, they got Ons, they got Funny Astro. Honestly, to me, that's, I mean, granted, Funny Astro obviously really, really big, but like comparatively, I think Reiner is like one of the greatest pickups of the offseason to make this team into a championship caliber roster.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so crucial to grab good tanks. And it's also such a crapshoot who's going to be good at tank, I feel. But that's,
but he can play everything at least. So, like, you know, if you're worried that your main tank, like, that's the problem, right? Yeah. With having the multi-tank setup in Overwatch 2. There's only one tank position.
Absolutely.
And if you need to play off-tank during a match, you can't play them both. Like, so...
Yep. Did we mention Ants last week? I wasn't on the episode last week.
I don't know.
Did we talk
about?
Not. Okay, well let's talk a little bit about Ants being added as well then, because this like you said, the Gladiators are starting to just form a super team. If you were going to try and pick up the best agents on the free market, the most hotly contested, Funny Astro, Ants, and Reiner as well, from what you're saying, would be 3 of them. So this team really does look like it's poised for. It's got all the pieces you would need to create a great starting roster. I can't tell you exactly who would be on it because we don't know exactly what the game's going to look like. But on a DPS-focused game where you have more space to do your thing, Ants should dominate.
He should pop. He should literally pop the fuck off. Like this guy is a once-in-a-lifetime talent, Ants. I think he definitely was helped along as well by different structure in terms of developing his hero pools when he was first introduced into the league, because he was pretty much all hitscan and he filled out a lot of the other roles, which is going to be important for Overwatch 2. So I don't know how he's going to do under the Gladiators.
We don't even know who that is.
Exactly.
We don't know who he's
going to be under. So we don't know. I'm assuming that part of the credit for Ons developing his hero playbook is comes from the coaching structure he was under in the Shock.
Yeah.
But
Jungbuck.
Mechanically, the guy's a freak. He is unbelievable. He's paired with Kevster. If you look at this entire roster as well, Kurt, just bring up what the Gladiators are working with. Look at this team,
it's
man.
just insane.
Shu and Skewed and Funny Astro. You're filling anything you want on a support line. The tank line as well, you've only got the one role, but they're going to be able to cover almost every single base as well. Space has just been ludicrously consistent over the course of his career. And then the DPS, I mean, are just going to farm. If I had one gripe of it, I'd want something else to fill in the DPS because I think it's a big reliance on Ans and Kevster. You need something else to fill this in. I hope this isn't really finished in that regard, but it's insane. They must have spent so much money.
Yeah, this
on the Ans point, again, looking a little bit like meta-y, but having one less tank on the field is actually so beneficial for DPS. It's insane. Like they need we've seen the play test. Did we see any snipers? No, we fucking didn't. I think snipers, unless they nerf the shit out of them, like Widowmaker's just going to be a fucking freak. Like, and Hanzo, Ashe is going to be a fucking freak. Like anything that can stand all the way back at the other end of the map and shoot into other people's spawns are just going to be so good. Because you have one less tank to chase you down, and picking up Arns is just an unreal play from the Gladiators because he is the best mechanical player I think we have in the Overwatch League in terms of like aim. He is insane, like you said, Bren. I think he is a once in a lifetime god gamer, and just stick him on the Widow at the start of the game as well. If we're thinking that maybe it's not that balanced, you know, like Widowmaker's just gonna pound. It's just gonna absolutely pound. You have one less person chasing after you. If this whole Lucio thing, people really do believe that there's less people to jump on you. The supports are just gonna get feasted on, like. Picking up good hit scan, long range hit scan at that, I think is the best move a team can make going into Overwatch 2.
This team just looks like they're the best on paper currently. I'm not going to say that they are going to be the best next year. I'm not going to make that claim.
But right now, because half the teams are players.
Yeah, right now on paper, early
you
off
would rate them
season.
above Shanghai?
I guess Shanghai are sticking with their roster, right?
Yeah, that's kind of
true.
That is that's a good
one of the best.
Good point. I think, though, if you compare the Gladiators roster to the Shanghai roster, God, Shanghai are so fucking good.
Yeah, they are.
I think the only benefit is just that they have over Shanghai is that they have a tank that could potentially play everything, while Shanghai might theoretically want to make swaps between them and between Fate and Void.
Yeah, but at the same time, man, Fate and Void are very, very well-rounded tank players themselves.
Yeah,
only within their own roles, most of the time, but they're still really, really good.
They are.
Okay. I'm going to retract my statement. They look like the best on paper. I'm going to say of the teams that have made moves in the offseason, they look the best. Because the Shanghai Dragons just... almost the best by default. They just have incredible talent already. They literally haven't made a move, have they? They've just got rid of some of the players.
They've
gotten rid of some coaches too, but yeah.
Yeah, but even with Shanghai cutting some of the slack, they still have really good coverage everywhere, which is another great benefit of the Gladiators, is that they have great coverage everywhere. But Shanghai have even better coverage in most places. So... No, I'm going to retract my statement. I'm not going to go as far as to say they look the best on paper because I do still think that's Shanghai. But I think the Gladiators have got to be second. I can't think of another team.
You could say best in an A.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Best in an A.
But they've made the best off-season acquisitions to improve their team, I think.
Agreed.
All right. Yeah. The Atlanta Reign have also completed their 2022 roster ostensibly. Do we think it's an improvement compared to what they had last year? Because Atlanta have always had a crack team on paper. They've always had a team that when you look at them, you think, damn, these guys should pop. Especially when it comes to the DPS line. But to be honest, I think on paper, Gator Hawk looked like they got an amazing tank line, and their backline looked really good on paper too. And this was the only year that they were able to put it together and get some decent results. Atlanta had a great season in 2021. Is this roster, which is taking a large amount of pieces from the American Tornado rookies, is it an improvement for this year?
Can we see the full roster? There's one thing that's missing from this, and it correlates with the Atlanta Reign success last year.
Okay.
And it's Unter, who is now the assistant coach for Gladiators.
Oh yeah, that's also the other thing. Gladiators also poached. They got Unter as an assistant coach too.
The one I always had issues with the Atlanta Reign in terms of the structure and how they just couldn't get the most out of their talent. Some of the blame obviously is always going to lie on players, but some of the blame also going to lie on the coaching staff. I think behind the scenes, everyone speaks very highly of Brad as like a kind of like a managerial position. Yeah. Always willing to prioritize staff and players in terms of what they want and what's best for the team. So he's fantastic in that role. But in terms of the actual analysis of the game and how to make the most out of your team, they're always missing, I think, somebody who could get the most out of their players. Unter came along, and it seemed to correlate with very good performances. They were finally getting a lot out of the talent, obviously relying on Pelican, but they were seeing success. And now he's gone again. So,
and specifically, he's gone again without anybody coming in to add to that role.
Yes.
It's not like he's gone and they've picked up some contenders coach. He's gone, and it's now just back to being Brad and Legit RC, who were the coaches for a long time. And Legit RC's been the coach of many successful rosters, but I have never heard a player say anything positive or negative about his coaching ability, honestly. And the same for Brad. I've heard a lot of good stuff about how they manage the team and that kind of stuff. I've never once heard a comment about them being great at the strategic side of things. I just haven't. So when you have that level of silence from players and then good comments for a person like Unter and then he's absent, I agree with you. It does concern me slightly.
Makes me worried, yeah.
What do you think? Is that reasonable concern from our side, Connor?
I think it's a very reasonable concern, especially considering a lot of people said on this. A lot of people said that Unter was a very big part of the reason why because like I didn't really believe in the Atlanta Reign roster doing better than last year coming into this year, because I don't feel like they had made some upgraded DPS positions, but then with the addition,
you mean for 2021 compared to
2021? Yeah, I wasn't very big on them, and then with the addition because I believe was Unter with them from the beginning or halfway through
I think it was halfway through. Yeah, it was like
it was halfway
I think
through.
He came in for the June Joust, which was literally the tournament in which they started their run doing well.
And then they had a great final, and then they had a great final stage and a great playoffs. And so a lot of people, the rumor mill says that like Unter was very big in helping getting this team like on the right strategic footing. Obviously, that's still like rumors, hearsay, right? Like there's no confirmed. Like I wasn't in the locker room. I don't know what's going on behind those doors, so no guarantee. But at the end of the day, regardless of any coaching stuff too, any roster transaction which has Pelican and Iris leaving your team seems like it's going to be a downgrade.
I am on board with the Pelican narrative. I think
Ultraviolet could be Iris caliber, but I mean, at the end of the day, Iris is now a very proven, flexible player.
Yes. Yes. He is for sure. I think, though, that the Atlanta Reign got a huge value out of Iris's Batiste, and he wasn't, you're saying flexible. In terms of what he played in matches, he didn't have the largest spread of flex supports played this year. They focused very heavily on him playing BAP and Moira above pretty much everything else. It's not that I'm doubting his ability on other roles. It's just that we didn't see the success with it because he was primarily a BAP player and then a bit of like the Moira when they were playing like the Zug comps.
Banking off of like his previous career, and I know his general skill already, and like just what other people have talked about. Like I view him sort of like a fielder.
Yeah, but the roles are different, right? Like where Fielder plays Ana, he plays BAP, and then they both play Moira extremely well.
But I think it's that I think they're both very flexible.
Yeah.
So I think but I will agree. I think he's the less proven of the two, but at the end of the day, so I still think when you take a very proven top level flex support out of your roster and then Pelican out of your roster, and then your replacements are Ultraviolet, which is a very good contenders player, has a lot of mechanical skill, not a guarantee that they're going to do is great on the main stage, and on top of that, Nero as the replacement for Pelican. And I think Nero actually had a pretty decent year with the Shock. I think he had a very good year. Yeah, but would you necessarily say it's the same. Like, even if he played at his top form, would you think he's going to be as good as Pelican?
No.
I think Nero at his top level is going to be a top level flex DPS, but he's not going to be Pelican. And the thing is, it's hard to be Pelican because Pelican is a superstar. Yes. Nero is a really good player. Nero can compete at the top level, but I just don't know if he's necessarily going to be Pelican level.
Yeah, I agree with that concern. I also think that the Alaran Terrain potentially might need to bulk out their support lineup a little bit. Like, I would have loved to see perhaps Iris with Ultraviolet and OG, something like that, because I'm again thinking about Overwatch 2 from the perspective of some of these teams are heading very firmly towards double flex support, as if they're convinced there's going to be a meta shift in that direction, and there's some evidence that would suggest it might be moving in that direction. And so at that point, if you have a player like OG that has to adapt his role quite considerably, on top of having a minorly down, well, not that minorly, a downgraded DPS line, it does feel like Atlanta are going perhaps the more American route at the cost of talent. Do you think that's fair to say that they're paying this year for people they can market around for Overwatch 2? They see eyes on the game. We want to be the all-American roster. That's what this says to me. Even though they're not all-American, obviously. They've got Kai, who's British. They've got Venom. They've got, I mean, I guess that's it, isn't it?
That's it.
But still, it's a primarily American roster that's going to do reasonably well. To me, it seems like there's been a bit of a shift in mentality towards prioritizing that aspect. New eyeballs on the game. We want to capture fans.
All comes down to clout.
It feels like some of it does. No?
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That some decisions get made based off of marketability, how easy it is to create content, how are they going to make money from the Overwatch League. Makes sense.
Yeah, well, I feel like that's more of a focus for Overwatch 2 specifically because of the fact that, like, you have a new game coming out. It's not like an extended lifecycle game like Overwatch 1. So there is a lot of opportunity from a content side of an organization to use players to make content that can help your bottom line significantly more than
early Overwatch on YouTube. I mean, Overwatch on YouTube still pops with like stuff, but the game just doesn't get new content, so it's kind of like dead. Like, content creators have shifted their focus to other games. But early Overwatch, when it came out, I mean, the videos reaching the millions on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Like the how-to guides, that kind of shit. That content's gonna pop the fuck off. You get a charismatic young rookie player that's also having a good performance in the Overwatch League to start making you content as well. It's now a potential path to actually get some return on your investment.
Do you know whether OG and Ultraviolet fit that, Connor? With the actual like. Yes, they're American, but there's a lot of shy American people as well that aren't very good at being able to be good content people.
I think they're reasonably well spoken and stuff. They're like pretty standard young gamers, you know. But like, so like you can put them in front of a camera. Like, do I think they're going to be the most charismatic bunch ever?
Do you think Gator is still going to be the face of this team though, or are one of these new players going to come in and do you going to become the face? Because I could still see Gator being the most spoken player on the team.
Absolutely. They should
Gator
just make a side content series about his tweets. I think that would fucking bang, honestly.
I think they should talk about the fact that Gator has to put sad exclamation.
Yeah, dude, Gator's the funniest motherfucker. He has one of the funniest Twitters in Overwatch for sure.
I think it's hard to supplant him. I think both of them are going to be really pleasant guys, and I think they're cool. And also the thing is, they're so young that like, who the fuck knows where their final form's gonna be? They're like 18. Yeah. Like, like if you compare 18-year-old me to fucking 26-year-old me now, like it's barely even the same person. So it's like it's hard to even specify where they're gonna end up.
I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't overlooking like either of them having a big stream or like in rank they're crazy like Sparkle, you know? Like Sparkle was really young, but he's got a wild personality that you can market around.
No big streams necessarily. OG does stream, but he doesn't have like there's no big streams really.
All right.
Overall, though, I like that the roster covers most of the bases coming into Overwatch 2. I'm just a little bit disappointed to see Unter leave because I do think that he was a big part of success, and I pray for the players that they have a similar like level of success going into next year. But I think the chances of it go down.
Well, let's head on to our next team to talk about as well, which is the Paris Eternal, because we got the Paris Eternal signing Glister. What the fuck?
Yeah, that's weird.
I mean,
so weird.
I assumed, perhaps erroneously, that Paris were going to be continuing as a budget team, essentially, into next year. I just kind of assumed that about Paris, about London, and also about the LA Valiant. Now, might not be true for any of those teams, because that's not based on inside information. It was just my assumptions at the beginning of the year. But Paris have signed Glister to a team that still has a bunch of the former Paris players on it, which is an extremely odd blend, in my opinion, no?
Yeah.
I think the biggest factor here is that this is another player with low stock in what is considered a relatively saturated market when you think of like, he is a hyperflex, technically. I think that's the thing, is that I essentially put Glister in the Edison category, where his stock is low because of his team circumstance, when he's actually a legitimate nutcase freak. And I think he's like really, really good still. And also Glister is in fact even more valuable than Edison in many ways, because he's a legitimate hyperflex. He can play everything if he wanted to. And people forgot how fucking good Glister was and how hyped he was coming from contenders. He is really, really good. It's just the situation did not help him out here for Shock. But I think it's like the J-Mac connection that's bringing him in. Because
he 100%. I think the reason why that came about was because he was on that London squad in 2020 when it was like only him.
I mean, they said in the Twitter, they said in a Twitter post that it's, what is it, like a happy reunion? Is the implication not that? I mean, that's the implication, right?
Sure. Yeah, because like Connor said, he was like the second most hyped player after Sparkle coming in.
And he was
because he was
crazy good as well.
Yes. Because he was a fucking freak.
And he was clearly the best player on London when he played for them that year.
Yeah, no, hands down. Like, it was him and Sparkle in contenders, just like, it was always them. Like, that was the storyline. Who's going to be the better DPS and who's going to be the most fought after going into Overwatch League. And it was Sparkle at the end of it. And then because he went to London with a ton of like Gen GS, Gen G A and B players, that he just kind of got lost. And I think everybody... But I wouldn't say forgot about him, but like it was a very forgettable year for London. Like, that was like considering their like completely shifted direction in which they wanted to go. And I think that's why. And then he goes to Shock, and what does he do on Shock? Like, he plays sometimes. He came in at the early start of the season, and he didn't really perform that well. But then towards the end of it, he really started popping off. And I think that kind of adds to it too, because people's first impression when you join Shock is like, oh my god, they're going to be fucking freaks. They're going to be so good. And then he was played a little bit, didn't do well, and then so I don't think Glister's had the best run in terms of how he's appeared on camera and on like in the server, in the game. And I think that's why the stocks are pretty low with him right now.
What shocks me though is not that Paris have it's not that Paris wouldn't want him. I'm sure Paris would want him. Why didn't anyone else want him more? That's what I don't understand. Is that Glister is clearly, if you've watched the guy's VODs of him playing on the Shock, I was watching Glister in the replay viewer to see whether, because obviously the guy's under a lot of scrutiny coming in to replace Striker in the mid-season. He was coming in to play the Tracer role. So I watched a bunch of his VODs from the replay viewer. He was nuts. Not just when he was playing the Tracer. He was very good at being able to coordinate with Smurf when they were playing that like Winston Tracer kind of stuff. He also was hitting unreal shots on Cassidy, which I'm going to start trying to burn into my brain. Cole.
I quite like just saying Cole. But I know that mixes up with Volts, but I don't know. Cole just sounds...
But his name is going to say Cassidy in the game.
I'm going to call him Cole.
All right, well, you're on a first-name basis with him. I guess you're cool like that. But Glister was hitting the craziest shots. It's clear he has talent, both mechanically and in terms of coordinating with a team. I don't understand why, if flex supports and hyperflexes are thin on the ground, like you're saying, Connor, why people weren't chomping at the bit to try and get Glister.
The stock's not high.
As a third, fourth place kind of pick, you know? Like, you should have been. You really should have been.
Also, I'm sure there's like economics that go into it where like his stock might not be high, but like initially when people ask for like salary, he goes like, I want this much salary. And teams are like, oh, that's too much for your performance, right? And so like that.
And what, Paris were the only one that tried to haggle him down? There's no way Paris are paying something crazy for this. Surely.
I definitely think that plays a part. I don't necessarily know what exactly is going on with that. I'm just saying that there are definitely plenty of tales I have heard from talking to all sorts of GMs and coaches and stuff where like players will come out and be like, and even agents where players will come out and be like, yeah, I want this much, or their agent will be like, I want this much. And then people will balk and be like, oh, okay, fuck that. And like go look at like other options for a while. And then maybe they'll return to them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So maybe, some of the people were interested. He asked for too much. And then by the time they would have got back to him, Paris has already snapped him up. Something similar.
So I feel like that was like a similar situation to what have happened to Meko, you know? Yeah. So like there's all sorts of
except
like,
Meko never got snapped up. Yeah. Oh, well,
you never got snapped up.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying it could have been like that could have been a very similar situation to what happened with Meko, right? Where like he was asking for too much. I heard that's like a potential thing that occurred where Meko was asking for way too much money and no one wanted to sign him for that.
The move of like Glister to Paris is exciting for Paris fans, but for me, who's not a fan of like Paris the team, I'm just a fan of watching the games. I'm a little upset that we might just end up seeing another year of Glister in like a London-esque team, like that first team. Wasted a little bit. I'm concerned a little bit with like Striker on Boston as well, so that I might enjoy really watching Striker continue to play again. But if the team around him isn't gonna be able to perform at the top level, then he might just get capped and end up just looking like a pretty mediocre Tracer player or mediocre DPS player in general, because you're going to have to flex a lot more for next year. But I mean, I'd love to see Boston pick up Glister and have Glister, Valentine, and Striker. Holy fuck, that would have been an amazing DPS line, you know? But like, I can't get excited about the Paris squad right now. I'm looking through the Paris squad, and it's Dan, Naga, and Glister is a really interesting DPS duo. Khan and Dredro. Yeah, they're pretty good, but the whole team together, these 5 players, unless I need more. I need more to sink my teeth into. At the moment, I'm just anticipating a year of being like, what could have been.
Yep. Basically, just summarizing my.
It's exciting. It's kind of exciting.
I mean, just because Paris looked like they're again leaning over towards more of like a budget roster. I mean, I think the rumors as well that are swirling around them are that Paris are another team that when a lot of people are spending big because we're going into Overwatch 2, Paris are still keeping the purse strings closed, tight.
Well,
to a degree,
they re-signed Naga, Khan, Dredro, and Dan. So
yeah, and I think those players would have commanded a salary, but there's a bit of a.
Not a large one.
Unless you're exactly, and also there's a bit of a hesitancy, I think, to signing talent from Europe for whatever reason. People are more inclined to look towards Korean contenders, and even though these guys have been proven in the Overwatch League, and I think they played pretty well, all things considered, with the circumstances they were under. There's some hesitancy there. The next talking point, though, I really do want to talk about.
Go for it.
Which is the fact that the Paris Eternal have been playing trials on a 5v5 workshop mode that's designed to simulate the pre-build of the Overwatch 2. We got meme or brilliant. I'm somewhere in the middle. I think it's kind of a meme because you're not going to be able to accurately simulate the pre-build, but also the pre-build that we saw was an incomplete game. It's Overwatch 1.5. This is... you can balance the game just about. You can try and get it kind of how you think the game will play, but
look at how ridiculous that looks.
What information could you glean from this that you wouldn't get from doing trials in 6v6?
Well, the reasoning they gave was because you want to be focusing on more fundamental stuff, which is like, if the game changes a lot, are these players versatile? Do they have enough game sense, or are they just like robots that follow the predetermined, I understand how game is played, I must do this at all times kind of algorithm? You want a player that can play... not
going to fold under unusual circumstances.
Yeah, can adapt quickly. And I mean adapt within like the game. So a lot of players might only think in terms of compositions, where it's like this comp counters this comp. When you're playing 5v5 and all of the characters are different, you've got to jump in the game, get an intuitive sense for what you could swap to try and counter their opponent. It's more like it's a bit more like how people play in ranked, where you're trying to counter individuals or ideas on the other team rather than having pre-selected coach-given comps. much more improvisational stuff, I think, is going to be selected for next year. It's almost like going back to the 2018 way of thinking about Overwatch, where nothing was perfected, and so you've got to just try and get the advantages wherever you can. There's no point trying to achieve perfection if you're not going to be able to execute it. So just spam the broken shit and counter your opponent's picks. I feel like that's going to be a lot of next year. And this helps select for it, perhaps?
I don't know. Because there's going to be... The rumor was, a long time ago, where a dev did an interview, the rumor was that there was going to be 6 new heroes introduced. You're potentially having roles moved around, like Doomfist turning into a tank. You're having the inherent balance of the game adjusted. You're having new maps. I mean, the maps aren't going to be affecting too much. But it's... Even this, our most accurate recreation of Overwatch 2... is going to pale in comparison to what the game is actually going to be like.
Disagree on the map point, by the way, just because the maps are definitely going to be smaller.
Are they designing them smaller? Or are you talking about...
They have to. Like, I don't think there's any way you'd make the maps the same size. I think
they're not going to redo all of the maps.
They're not going to redo the maps.
I don't think they're
going to. The maps are going to be the same.
5v5 on these maps are just going to feel so... Not control necessarily, but like things like King's Row, like Voskaya.
I think you're expecting too much, mate.
Maybe I am, yeah. Not Voskaya, obviously no 2CP, but maybe I am. But I think, sure, okay, yeah.
No. I mean, you might be correct. I don't mean to shut you down. You seriously might be correct. They might redo all of the maps.
Yeah,
I just feel like that's an enormous undertaking.
There was there is just no way the maps... it is an enormous undertaking. It is, but it fucking has to be because it's Overwatch 2. It can't be literally 1.5. It's not like... I just don't want to turn into XQC meme, man, where he's just like, he watches the trailer and he goes, it's the same game. Like, you know what I mean? I don't want it to turn into that. It is a massive undertaking, yeah, but they've also been working on it for however the fuck long. I actually kind of regret asking about that when me and Hex did the the watch party with one of the devs. I actually really regret asking.
What did you ask?
I regret not asking that how the original maps, King's Row, this one for example, like Busan or anything, are going to change, or if they will, because
they did say they would change King's Row for PvE, right? They said in one of the announcements that there was going to be new areas to the map for PvE. But I don't know whether that is going to extend to PvP. But they are.
That's where they're going to put all the raid bosses in those new maps.
Yeah, like, I mean, the PvE. The PvE is no way going to be those kind of changes where it looks like they're adding more than taking away. Those changes, I doubt, would be in the actual multiplayer. That would be insane. Well, you make the maps bigger, but then you take away a character. That makes...
I mean, they might not make the maps bigger. Maybe they would like close off some pre-existing areas, but let you like see them through a window or something. So it's like, oh, do you remember playing there in Overwatch 1? I don't know.
You gotta,
oh my god!
You gotta see it play out with, again, like the DPS speed boost increase. You might
see that does make the map feel smaller. To be fair, if you have got a speed boost, but then, dude, I don't know. I just don't. Looking at the new maps. The old maps are going to pale in comparison in terms of how much action is going to happen, because there's so much fucking open space in the new in the old ones. But then you look at the playtest that Mitch and Matt casted over, those maps look small, or like at least more enclosed.
Yes, the areas in which you fight are smaller, even though the map itself might be large.
Go on.
So in order to create this 5v5 thing, have they essentially just tried to replicate every change that was spoken about or talked about for pros when they went and played the playtest? So there's the tanks all play the same as they did, like the ult charge is slower, like all of that stuff. I mean, they're playing with Orisa here. They didn't have Orisa.
Was that? Did you see that?
Yeah, just launch forward.
I think the most important thing, more so than anything else, I actually find this very valid, even if all they did was just remove one of the tanks, was because at the end of the day, the most core fundamental change was the removal of a tank. So I think that's the most important part. Like, I think being down a tank already changes the balance of the game and the flow of the game so much that, like, even if you just take if you just take Overwatch 1 and play...
Orisa has a dash instead of her shield.
Huh? Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, what... Is this what is this?
I don't know. Where have they got that from?
I don't know. It's unimportant. It's unimportant here. It's besides the point.
I think it is important.
I don't know if this is. I don't.
Let Avast finish his fucking
might as well run
point.
the fucking trials on Team Fortress 2.
But the trials don't matter either way. The point is that at least this way you're testing without a tank. At the very least, you're testing -1 tank. So to me, I feel like it's. If you're gonna pick all of the trials are valid, I think you could trial it playing fucking the marble game from Squid Game or some shit. Like I don't give it because at the same time it's still testing the same relevant skills because it's not Overwatch 2. Like who gives a shit? But at least this you're not playing. You're down 1 tank.
That's gonna be the worst point I've ever heard on Plat Chat. You might as well test people playing marble game.
But the point being is that no matter what trial you run, you're acting like one trial is better than the other. But at the end of the day, like all the trials are fundamentally flawed.
If I trialed players based on how well they play the marble game, literally, that would be an atrocious comparison. Sure. There's a scale. I mean, that would be awful, and playing on Overwatch 2 really would be amazing. Yeah. You have to try and find something that's in between and as high up as possible.
That's why I think this is the best option, because it's down a tank. It's down a tank.
Sure, it's closer. It's closer than playing Overwatch 1.
Yeah, that's, in my opinion, I think this is a very valid thing to do because the most fundamental change is being down 1 tank for Overwatch 2. That is the most fundamental change to the game. So, like, the whole game's balance and core philosophy changes and the pace of the game changes, even if you just play the exact same Overwatch 1 balance, just -1 tank.
Yeah,
so I think it's fine.
I also think this is probably the only valid way to trial tanks. Because, why would I do a trial... I mean, how else do you trial tanks? Do you trial... The only other way that I can think of is play Overwatch 1, 6v6, as normal, you're doing proper trials, except make every main tank play off tank, and every off tank you're trialing play main tank. That's the only other way that I can think of trying to do that, because at least then you already know how good they are based on their match performance previously on their normal role. So at least then you're like, in the trial, you're swapping them completely and getting an idea of something you'd never see from match VODs. Do you know what I'm saying there? That's the only other way I can think that you could possibly get any validity to trialing tanks right now. Because if you just do, I'm trying to trial OG to see whether he should be the main tank, be the tank for next year. I will trial him on Winston and Ryan. Why? What's the point? What does that give you? I don't think that's useful whatsoever.
We're getting down the dark path again.
I think this is. I like the dark path.
We lose motivation for our livelihood. We're getting down that dark path.
Okay,
again.
all right. Let me move off the dark path then. I think this was a really cool idea, though. Huge shout out to the Paris Eternal for being inventive enough, and also shout out to the people who made
the
this
mod
too.
person. Yeah,
the people that modded this and put the time into creating it. Huge shout out to you.
It is cool.
That's really awesome. Cool. I think Paris released the code or something, or they said they would release some stuff. Maybe it was just those VODs. Anyway, let's move on to talking about Toronto, though. Because Toronto have made some interesting signings, actually. They've picked up some players that are pretty, what's the word? Like, reputable around the scene. Yeah. The Toronto Defiant, to me, have been the quintessential no one gives a fuck franchise since their existence.
You're not wrong.
The people who work for Toronto constantly at me on Twitter whenever I say that shit, but it's true. It's just true. Every year has been so fucking forgettable for Toronto, and I think these pickups might go some distance to countering that. I actually think they've got some interesting players on their team this year. Hotba and Muze are both well-rounded and have some level of good success. Best year from Hotba this year. Also, we know him as being an incredibly flexible player. That's part of where his stock came from. And Muze did really well with Gladiators, too.
Yep.
I don't know as much about Chorong, though.
They have a Twilight, who is insane. Like, still insane.
Sure.
His time on the Shock, I think half the time we were talking about just keep him in.
I'm quite surprised that
why are you only subbing him for Vosk defense? You know what I mean? Like, holy moly. Yeah. I'm kind of surprised they didn't keep them on Shock, but they still have Violet, and obviously their plan is kind of coming to... We're kind of seeing how they want to develop the team now. But Twilight pickup is absolutely fucking massive. The guy has not lost any amount of skill since he's had that, like, very small break.
No, I don't think so.
Him, Hisu, Hotba, Chorong...
Hisu's still great as well, by the way. Hisu is still a talent.
Exactly. Like, this roster looks fucking crazy.
This roster does look good.
I would put it under the Gladiators. Obviously, the Gladiators point, I definitely stand by it earlier. I think that's definitely... It's one of the best rosters for me to come out so far in the off season, but this could definitely rival top 3, top 2 maybe. Like, oh my God, the additions that they made. Muze just blew everybody out the water on the Gladiators. I was a big Muze stan earlier on.
Who's having
coaching?
an already
they added
sure.
It's still KDG, and they added Moby Dick as well.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So see, which is also, but I am slightly surprised. Sorry, I just really want to finish my point. I'm slightly surprised they didn't. No, it's fine. It's fine. They didn't keep Aspire. But like looking at it, they want to go full Korean by the looks of it, especially adding Moby Dick as well. It seems like they want to go full Korean. I'm surprised because Aspire, oh my God, he was the bright spark for that fucking team that they needed and actually made them look pretty damn good.
Yeah, I think I think though it makes sense from their point of view. If they want to go for a full Korean team and they feel like that was one of the issues for them last year was like getting all of that communication on board, they just want to simplify things. And I think keeping it simple is very good for Toronto because every year has been just a mishmash of ideas, like no clear creative decision from the top. And I think this year it seems like they've definitely got some semblance of a vision right now. These two tanks should do very well. This backline is looking promising. Again, I would like an addition of another flex support, I think, but they could make do with what they've got. And the DPS line is not finished, but Hisu is one good player. If they had managed to grab Glister, man, Hisu Glister would have been really fucking good. Yep. This is why I'm not happy about Glister to Paris, even though I know Paris fans will be, is because I feel like he could have been utilized much better in a lot of other teams that have higher aspirations. Because this Toronto team looks like it's got aspirations, looks like they're paying for some decent talents, Muze, Hotba in particular, and Twilight as well, actually. This team's got the semblance of a good squad.
Yep.
They can literally only go up. I'm looking at their results page right now, and it's just the teal color of 5th to 8th to 17th. Like, if you look at every single regular season they've done, 2019, 17th.
Unfortunately.
Regular season in 2020, 15th. Hey, it's going up, though. 2021, we're 11th. So maybe in 2022, they break top 10. Like, I am 100% agree with you, Josh. It's been an absolute mismatch, and it's been almost a forgettable team. It really has. I think they brought in a lot of kind of fan favorites early on, especially with like Logix. Everybody loves Logix with good reason. He's been a good player for a long time.
Well, at some point,
Sure, they had they had the Canadian
season.
Roster.
Yeah, with the Canadian roster.
Had agilities, etc., etc. Then they were like, okay, this makes sense. You've built a very marketable roster with a lot of well-liked players in the community, but they never really did much else than that. Like 2020 was, to be fair to them, not a good season for them.
That 2020 team did get screwed a little bit by COVID and not being able to travel around, because I think if they had the homestand model and they'd been able to like market the players as they traveled and went to homestands, that could have been successful for them in the like getting fans department. As it was, they just kind of played from home and were bad and no one gave a fuck. Or at least it felt like that from my perspective. So maybe it was different from the inside of Canada. But this team looks good. I'm actually getting intrigued by Toronto's off-season moves. Who do you think would be good pickups? If you had to flesh this roster out, extra DPS players. Avast, you said you've looked at the market. Who are you looking for extra DPS on this team to support Hisu?
I mean, so it's tough right now. I mean, honestly, like players, when you think about players that are currently on the market that are going to support Hisu as like because they need a lot of shit. Like Hisu plays primarily like a lot of like, doesn't Hisu mostly play hitscan Sombra type of shit? And
yeah, he doesn't play all hitscans though, I think. I mean, he plays the Widow, he plays the Hanzo, he plays the Sombra. He does play.
Does he play Tracer at all? I'm trying to remember if he plays Tracer.
Ash. I think he has played Tracer, but I wouldn't call him a Tracer.
I don't think he was not really a Tracer player. Yeah, he's mostly been hitscan, Sombra, and like Reaper. So he's kind of like some of the interesting like niche heroes alongside hitscan is what he's been. So you need a Tracer player and you need a flex DPS player. You need both those types of players, and you're looking to build a Korean roster. And right now, like there's not a lot of really good like flex DPS Korean talent available at this point. They've all been snapped up or rumored to be snapped up.
There's one player who, I mean, doesn't fulfill that role, but I think would be quite nice to have on this team. Jecse. I think.
Exe could be an interesting
playing right now.
addition.
I mean, I know he's playing.
But
he's on an active roster.
He just overlaps so much with Hisu, though,
Is
man.
there an issue with that? Some rosters have got 3 DPS, where 2 of them overlap pretty heavily with hitscan.
Most of those people, though, one of the hitscans plays Tracer. The problem with having Hisu and Exe, you are asking one of them to play Tracer, and I think it would end up just being Hisu.
Yeah, Hisu.
Yeah, but I'm not big on that. Yeah, I don't think that's great, man. I think that's not putting Hisu in a position to play his best.
Has Architect been let go from Spark?
I think Architect is still on Spark, as far as I'm aware. Let me make
sure.
Is he
really? No shot they kept him, did they?
I think he is. I think he is still on Spark.
He
is. Yeah. He's still on Spark, yeah. So you can't, I mean, unless they were to poach Architect, like, they don't have Architect. I mean, they could theoretically bring out some, like, really old Flex DPS. Like, you could fucking get, like, Ding, you know? Or some shit. Like, bro. You know, like, the thing is, and there are players that get Contenders that I'm probably not remembering off the top of my head, but I don't remember every Contenders player. But the point being is, like, when you think of top tier level players that you want to be on the top tier level, playing the likes of Twilight. And
wait, isn't Sominsu available?
Summon-Su is available, but Summon-Su
pick him up.
No, but Summon-Su,
fuck it.
He doesn't fix any of the roster holes.
Fuck it. Pick up Summon-Su. Fuck it,
dude. Pick up Summon-Su.
Any of these roster holes. So, like, I don't know. I can't think of very many, like, current top tier players that are available DPS wise, like, because I can't remember all the contender players. I'm sorry, I don't know all the contenders players. I can't remember them off the top of my head, especially like the Korean contenders players. There's potentially Chinese talent, but the problem is that a lot of the best Chinese talent is locked under academy squads, like for like Chengdu Academy and things like that. I
also don't think they were going to go for a mixed roster. That last year they folded when they were looking like they were building a Korean roster, and it felt like, to me, it was very weird because Beast got added to the team.
Yeah, Beast was kept on the team.
Beast was kept on the team. Or reintroduced, I think, re-added. I can't remember. And Logix was kept on. And I think there was some... It looked like to me, from an outside-in perspective, knowing how some of these orgs work, that there was maybe some pressure being placed, and some of the free reign that perhaps was given to the head coach to make decisions was taken away in favor of adding players that might be marketable.
Always felt like a mixed vision.
Yeah, it was a mixed vision. It was like they had an identity of what they were going for, and it shifted in the off season. This time around, they just need to not fold. Do the research. Look around. I'm the same as you, Connor. I mean, I haven't been scouring the VODs and hours of contenders players in Korean contenders. I don't. There's going to be players out there that you can take a risk on. In terms of top talent available, it's limited, but the players
I knew the top talent coming from contenders and from Overwatch League teams, but like I just can't think of that many currently available to go to this roster now at this point.
Haven't been snapped up already.
That haven't been snapped up. You know, there's just not that many options. So I'm that's the one thing that worries me about this team, is that I don't know where they're going to get Flex DPS or a Tracer player from currently.
I think
holy shit, you could still pick up Ado.
Wow, yeah, I haven't heard the name of Ado in a long time.
On talent, just clicking through, and you could. Hey.
I mean, Ado plays Tracer. He plays Genji.
Yes. I don't know how good he's been recently. I only remember his form from the last time he was in the Overwatch.
How did Talon do? Well, last season on Talon
was a good team.
Second place, and there was a really close series against.
That's where Chorong came from.
Played, with Ado. So,
possible.
There you go.
This episode, though, to me, has highlighted the importance of snapping up proven DPS talent early, and then maybe waiting and like. I feel like if you're a GM, it would have been better, with the benefit of hindsight, to go hard in the paint for some proven DPS, because the DPS role hasn't changed. It's just gotten better, or at least it seems like that. And then for tanks and supports, maybe pick up some, cheaper options and see how the game goes from there, and maybe try and add in the mid-season. But DPS are just gonna. We're living in the DPS world, I think, heading into next year.
Crazy addition.
Okay.
Youngjin.
I mean, that's like adding Ding to the roster.
I want Youngjin to come
like
out of
there
retirement.
are some weird ones out there.
To come out of retirement and join Toronto. I feel like Youngjin got done dirty by Roblox, but he was flexible. He played some weird shit
Yeah,
he played a lot of different stuff.
He played some odd stuff.
His most famous moment was C9ing on Dorado while walking off the payload. Unfortunate.
He was good though. I mean, he was good at the niche stuff that he played.
Yeah, the niche stuff that he played.
What about
good.
Nano Hana?
Nano Hana.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
pick
whatever.
up flour and pine and put them on Toronto.
I'm done talking about Toronto.
Yeah. See if you can trade for Who Are You.
Nice one. Good joke.
I mean, Who Are You still signed, isn't he?
Who Are You is still on? Yeah, he's still signed.
Dragon still.
Yeah, which I think is a little bizarre, but I mean, go for it. Why not? All right. I know that there's probably some other things as well. When I'm looking through the compilation of roster moves and stuff like that, I believe there's some other rumored stuff that we haven't got to this week, but we're approaching the 2-hour mark, and so I feel like this is a pretty good point at which to wrap things up. And if you're a fan of a team and we haven't discussed them, remember what I said at the beginning of the episode. It's a long off season. We will get around to discussing everything eventually. But if you have a particular move you want us to talk about next week and you think, oh, they've forgotten about it, then tell us in the comments and we'll make sure we get to it. Although our aim, as I said, is to make sure we get to everything over the course of the 6 fucking months that we have to discuss this stuff. So don't worry. Now, though, as we head into the final moments, it's our most important segment. It's Bren's Player of the Week.
Yep.
And we actually have Bren for Bren's Player of the Week.
Yep.
Whoa, no way.
We've discussed it.
Give it to yourself.
We had an hour-long meeting talking about my Player of the Week this week. It's a lie. We didn't.
I blacked out from that one then.
Yeah, it's a lie. We did.
I was very drunk and just forgot it all.
I've been mulling over my Player of the Week over the course of this episode, and this is going to be a bit of a cliche one, and also you might say there's a bit of cronyism involved. But I would like to give my award this week. I don't get to give my award out too often. He says he consults me. He doesn't consult me. Not anymore. I'm being shoved into the corner.
Yeah.
Away. Right. It's very sad.
Is there a point here? Sad. Is there a player?
The player that I'm actually giving it to a player. It's gonna be going to Matthew DeLisi.
Okay.
Super TF. Now, I see some squirms on the faces.
Just confused as to why.
Well, because this is the first decision I've made in a long time on Plat Chat Overwatch.
Okay.
Since a lot of these changes happened. And I firmly believe it wasn't because of the Tifa Lockhart cosplay. It wasn't because of this. Yes. It wasn't because of this as much as that was incredible.
Oh, now I'm even more confused now. I don't know.
So, it's because I think...
Wait, what is this comment by Avast? What is this Avast comment? This guy cornering the horny Kuma market and the dick flattened by Overwatch balanced main tank market in a bold merger.
Yeah. Am I
Give
wrong?
it to that tweet right now.
Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Okay, sorry. Why has he got the player of the week then? If it's not for this.
Super had a lot of options in this offseason.
Booba.
But the thing that I respect about him is the competitor's mindset.
Cocker.
He could have retired. He could have become a full-time streamer. He had many options outside of that, I'm assuming. Obviously, the guy commands a high salary. He's the face of the Overwatch League in some regard. But that competitor's mindset to carry on, despite the fact that you didn't get the three-peat that you were after, I think a lot of players would use that as an opportunity to break free and see where Overwatch 2 goes. The guy's just jumping straight into another season. He's again, no fucks given, whatever, GG, go next attitude. He is a cool part of the Overwatch League, whether you love him or hate him. So he's going to get my Player of the Week this week for continuing to play Overwatch.
Wow. Nice.
That's a high bar. That's a high bar.
Yep.
I seriously think that's a very good Player of the Week.
Yeah, honestly, sure.
It is very satisfying.
That's way more profound than I thought it was going to be.
There's so many people that in his position that have moved on to different things.
Yep. I mean, there's plenty of people that retired this year that weren't even in as good a position as Super, that didn't use their player thing to build the rest of their brand. They just, for a lot of people, it feels like, it's a new game. It's a good time to put a cap on your time playing Overwatch professionally, because it's a fucking stressful job as well. It's not sunshine and rainbows. So, all right. Good Player of the Week, Bren.
Thank you.
Actually gave it to a player as well.
I did.
Scientific community didn't do anything this week?
they've been working on some. They've been cooking up some shit.
Yeah.
I got a bunch of vaccines the other day.
I got a bunch of vaccines.
The other day, I got 3 vaccines at once. I got my COVID booster. I got my COVID booster. I got my tetanus shot, and I got an HPV vaccine. I sat down to get my COVID booster, and the guy was like, "You want a tetanus shot as well?" I was like, "Okay, okay."
Did he give you some chemical X from the Powerpuff Girls as well?
I sat down in the chair, and he was getting the shots ready. He's flicking the needle, or whatever, and he's like, "You want an HPV vaccine as well?" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, let's do it. Let's do it." See, and they pumped me up with the Captain American super serum, and I
that's what makes Captain America or those vaccines.
I died for 2 days. I couldn't lift my arms, and I was fatigued. My strength was sapped.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if you offered you a horse tranquilizer as well in the alley that you were getting these injections
in America. Yeah, maybe.
I mean, hey, that's good, and I think it's excellent public health. They've got COVID boosters and stuff like that. If it's available. Also, the HPV vaccine normally used for women, but also men can get it. That stops the spread to women as well.
Yeah,
so.
You actually should get it as a dude. That's something I learned recently. You should actually.
Yeah, I didn't know that until we were having this discussion.
Because they always said it was for women. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was unaware of that as well. But I can't help but think the US is kind of fucked when every healthcare provider is financially incentivized to push as much shit onto you as possible. But I don't know.
I mean, they were free.
They were free for you.
Apart from the HPV.
They get paid.
The HPV was covered under my insurance.
Bro,
yeah, they get paid by your insurance.
Now we're gonna get swarmed. Now we're gonna get swarmed by you. Just uttering those phrases means this podcast is ruined. Now, like the comment section is gonna be filled with a bunch of loony crystal people, and it's gonna be a fucking disaster. It's gonna be a fucking disaster.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll be back next week with another episode of Plat Chat, and we'll be discussing more off-season stuff. So leave us a comment about what you want us to discuss then. See you then.
Bye. Woo.